So here's something kind of wild to think about. The Simpsons has been on the air since December 17th, 1989. That means this show has been running for over 35 years, over 800 episodes, 37 seasons and counting, with a renewal that takes it all the way through season 40. It is the longest-running American primetime scripted series in the history of television, and it's not even close. And across all that time, all those years, all those hundreds and hundreds of episodes, the characters never age. Bart Simpson is still 10 years old. Lisa is still 8. Maggie is still a baby sucking on that pacifier. Homer still works at the nuclear power plant. Marge still has that impossible blue tower of hair. Nothing changes. That's the deal. That's the whole point of the show. The Simpsons exist in a kind of amber, frozen in time, living the same year over and over again while the world around them keeps moving forward. But here's the thing that makes tonight interesting. Scattered across those 35-plus years of episodes, hidden between the Halloween specials and the celebrity guest spots and the couch gags, the writers have given us something really special. They've given us roughly 10 different glimpses into what actually happens when these characters grow up. Future episodes, flash forwards, visions of what Bart looks like at 40, what Lisa becomes as an adult, what happens to Homer and Marge's marriage when the kids leave home, what Maggie sounds like when she finally talks. And the wild part is that none of these futures agree with each other. In one episode, Bart is the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. In another, he's a washed-up deadbeat crashing on Ralph Wiggum's couch. In one version, Lisa marries Milhouse. In another, she's dating Nelson. In another, she's with a woman. Homer dies and gets cloned in one future. In another, he's perfectly fine, just older and even lazier than before. The show has what's called a floating timeline, which means the past keeps getting rewritten too. Homer and Marge were teenagers in the 70s, then the 80s, then the 90s. If the past won't stay put, the future doesn't stand a chance either. None of these episodes are technically canon. The writers know it, the characters sometimes joke about it, and fans have argued about it for decades. But here's what's fascinating. Even though the details contradict each other constantly, the emotional truths stay the same. Every single future agrees that Bart will struggle. Every single future agrees that Lisa will achieve great things but feel alone doing it. Every future shows Homer staying exactly who he is, for better and for worse. Every future shows Marge holding the family together until she just can't anymore. And every future keeps Maggie wrapped in mystery, her voice hidden, her potential untapped. Right up until the most recent future episode from December 2025, which finally broke that pattern in a way that genuinely surprised people. So tonight we're going through all of it. Every flash forward the show has ever given us. Every character. Every version of the future. From that first quick glimpse in 1992 all the way through to that December 2025 episode that aired just a few months ago. We're going to build a complete picture of what happens to every single member of the Simpson family and a whole lot of Springfield's supporting cast when time finally catches up to them. This is going to take a while, so get comfortable, settle in, and if you fall asleep somewhere in the middle, that's perfectly fine. The Simpsons will still be here when you wake up. They always are. Now, if you're watching this, you probably already know The Simpsons. You've probably seen at least a few episodes. Maybe you grew up with the show. Maybe your parents grew up with the show and you inherited it the way you inherit a recipe or a family joke. Something that was always there, part of the background noise of life. Or maybe you found the show on Disney Plus, scrolling through at 2 a.m. and something about the opening credits hooked you. However you got here, you know the basics. Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, Maggie, Springfield, Donut, Couch Gag. Dough. But what you might not know, what even longtime fans sometimes don't realize, is how much emotional depth is hiding inside the future episodes. These aren't just fun what-if scenarios. They're some of the most honest, most vulnerable, most human things the show has ever produced. I've watched all of them multiple times for this video, and every time I watch them, I notice something new. a look on Homer's face in Holidays of Future Past that I didn't catch before, a line of dialogue in Barthood that hits differently depending on where I am in my own life, a background detail in Lisa's wedding that tells you more about the world than 20 minutes of exposition ever could. These episodes reward attention, they reward care, and tonight we're going to give them both. But before we get into the futures themselves, we need to talk about the show that created them. Because you can't really appreciate where these characters end up unless you understand where they came from and what The Simpsons means in the broader context of American television. The whole thing started with a guy named Matt Groening. He was a cartoonist from Portland, Oregon, who had been drawing a comic strip called Life in Hell for years. In 1987, the producer James L. Brooks, who had already won Academy Awards for Terms of Endearment, asked Groening to develop some short, animated segments for a sketch comedy show called The Tracy Ullman Show. Groening came up with these crude little characters, a family of yellow-skinned weirdos with overbites and spiky hair, and he named them after his own family, Homer, Marge, and his sisters Lisa and Maggie. Bart was an anagram of brat. Those shorts ran for about 2 years, 48 of them in total, and they were rough. The animation was shaky, the jokes were simple, and nobody expected much from them. But audiences responded to something in those characters, something warm underneath the crudeness, and Fox took a chance on giving them their own half-hour show. The Simpsons premiered on December 17, 1989, with a Christmas special called Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. And within a year, the show had become one of the biggest cultural phenomena in the country. Bart Simpson t-shirts were everywhere. "Don't have a cow, man" was something actual human beings said to each other in conversation. "Eat my shorts" got kids sent to the principal's office. The word dough would eventually be added to the Oxford English Dictionary. Time magazine would name The Simpsons the best television series of the entire 20th century. The show's golden age, roughly seasons 3 through 8, produced some of the greatest episodes of any television show ever made. Marge versus the Monorail, Last Exit to Springfield, Cape Fear, Who Shot Mr. Burns? These weren't just great animated episodes, they were great episodes of television, period. The writing staff during those years included people who would go on to create Futurama, The Office, Parks and Recreation, and The Daily Show. The Simpsons was a comedy writer's boot camp disguised as a cartoon. What made the golden age so special was the density. Every episode packed in so many jokes, so many visual gags, so many layers of references and callbacks and meta-commentary that you could watch the same episode 5 times and catch something new each time. The humor worked on multiple levels simultaneously. A joke would be funny on the surface, funnier if you caught the cultural reference, and even funnier if you understood the satirical point underneath. No show had ever done that before in animation. Very few shows have done it since, and the emotional beats were just as dense. Lisa's Substitute, where Lisa falls for a guest teacher who actually understands her, is one of the saddest episodes of television ever produced, and it ends with the single funniest joke about the democratic process ever written. And Maggie Makes 3, which explains why there are no photos of Maggie in the family album, builds to a final reveal that is both heartwarming and devastating in equal measure. The show could make you laugh and cry in the same scene, sometimes in the same sentence, and that range is what set it apart from everything else on television. This matters for the future episodes because the emotional sophistication that the Golden Age established is what makes the future episodes work. A lesser show could do a flash-forward gimmick. But The Simpsons' future episodes work because the characters are rich enough to sustain genuine emotional stakes in any time period. When Bart reconnects with his sons in 2041, it hits hard because 20 years of Bart episodes have taught us exactly who he is and why his failures hurt. When Lisa chooses her family over Hugh in 2010, it hits hard because 6 seasons of Lisa episodes have shown us how desperately she wants to escape Springfield and how deeply she loves it at the same time. The show generated over $13 billion in merchandise over its run. It won 37 Emmy Awards. It has featured over 800 guest stars, which is a Guinness World Record. The voice cast, led by Dan Castellaneta as Homer and Julie Kavner as Marge, has been doing this for over 35 years. Some of them have been replaced. Pamela Hayden, who voiced Milhouse for 35 years, retired in November 2024. Phil Hartman, who voiced Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz, was murdered in 1998, and those characters were retired out of respect. Marcia Wallace, who voiced Edna Krabappel, passed away in 2013, and the show put a chalkboard message up that said, "We'll really miss you, Mrs. K." The Simpsons isn't just a television show. It's a living piece of cultural history that has outlasted entire generations of viewers. People who watched the premiere in 1989 now have children who have children of their own. And the show is still going, still airing new episodes on Fox every Sunday night, still streaming every single episode on Disney+, which launched a 24/7 Simpsons stream in March 2025 because demand was that high. Think about what that means for a moment. There are people alive today who have never known a world without The Simpsons. For them, the Simpsons family has always existed, the same way the sun has always risen and water has always been wet. Homer has always been eating donuts. Bart has always been writing on the chalkboard. Lisa has always been playing saxophone. Maggie has always been silent. These characters are as much a part of the American cultural landscape as Mount Rushmore or the Statue of Liberty, except they're funnier and they have better hair. The show has crossed over into virtually every area of American life. Politicians have referenced it in speeches. Scientists have named species after its characters. There's a species of wasp named after Mr. Burns. There are streets named after Simpsons characters. The show has been translated into dozens of languages and broadcast in over 100 countries. A tourist attraction in Universal Studios lets you walk through Springfield. The show's influence is so pervasive that it's become one of those rare cultural artifacts that transcends its medium. You don't have to have ever watched an episode to know who Homer Simpson is. You just know, the same way you know Mickey Mouse or Superman or Bugs Bunny. Homer has entered the permanent gallery of fictional characters that everyone on Earth recognizes. But here's why the future episodes are special. In a show where nothing ever changes, where the status quo resets at the end of every episode, where Bart will always be 10 and Lisa will always be 8, the future episodes are the one place the writers get to ask, but what if it didn't reset? What if time kept moving? What would actually happen to these people? And the answers they came up with, spread across a dozen episodes over 3 decades, are funny and surprising and sometimes genuinely heartbreaking. Because when you take away the safety net of the floating timeline and force these characters to actually grow up, you discover things about them that 22 minutes of regular Simpsons can never reveal. You discover that Bart's biggest problem was never his intelligence. It was that nobody believed in him. You discover that Lisa's greatest achievement was always going to come at a personal cost. You discover that Homer's refusal to change is simultaneously his greatest flaw and his most enduring quality. You discover that Marge gave more of herself to this family than anyone ever acknowledged. And you discover that Maggie, the baby who never speaks, might actually be the most fascinating Simpson of all. That's what tonight's about. Not just listing facts about future episodes, but building the complete emotional portrait of what happens when the Simpsons finally grow up. Character by character, episode by episode, future by future. And if you're enjoying this so far, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. It really helps, and we've got a long, cozy night ahead of us. Grab a blanket, get your pillow right. We're just getting started. Now, one thing you should know about The Simpsons that doesn't get talked about enough is how the show's relationship with time has always been complicated. From the very beginning, the show played fast and loose with continuity. Characters reference past episodes sometimes, ignore them other times. Homer has had roughly 47 different jobs depending on which episode you're watching. Marge and Homer's wedding date has been given as different years and different seasons. The show doesn't care about internal consistency in the same way that, say, Breaking Bad or The Wire does. It cares about jokes, it cares about emotional truth, and it cares about making the best possible 22 minutes of television each week. But the future episodes are different. When the writers sit down to imagine what happens to these characters in 10, 20, 30 years, they're doing something the show normally refuses to do. They're taking consequences seriously. They're letting actions have permanent results. They're asking what happens when the safety net disappears, and these characters have to actually live with who they are. And you can tell the writers love doing it. Some of the most emotionally resonant episodes in the entire series are future episodes. Lisa's Wedding from season 6 is regularly cited as one of the top 10 Simpsons episodes ever made across any category. Holidays of Future Past from season 23 was written as a genuine potential series finale. Barthood from season 27 made people cry, and that's not a thing Simpsons episodes usually do. These episodes matter. They're not throwaway gimmicks. They represent the writers at their most ambitious, their most vulnerable, and often their most honest. Because when you strip away the gags and the guest stars and the topical satire, what you're left with is a family. And what the future episodes ask is the simplest question of all. Will this family be okay? The answer is complicated. It's messy. It contradicts itself depending on which episode you watch. But across 35 years of attempts, the writers keep circling back to the same basic idea, which is that the Simpsons will struggle, they'll fail, they'll hurt each other, they'll disappoint each other, but they'll never stop being a family. There's a reason these episodes tend to air around Christmas or during season finales. They're the show at its most reflective. The regular episodes are about the week, about the joke, about the topical reference. But the future episodes are about the long game. They're about what it all adds up to. They ask the questions you ask yourself at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep and your brain won't stop running. Did I make the right choices? Will my kids be okay? Will my marriage survive? Will I become the person I wanted to be? Or will I become the person I was always going to be regardless? The Simpsons future episodes don't have definitive answers to those questions. But they offer something better than answers. They offer company. They say, we don't know either. But here's what it might look like. Here are 10 different versions of what might happen. Some of them are scary, some of them are sad, some of them are weirdly beautiful. And all of them end the same way, with a family sitting together in a house in Springfield, still together, still trying, still there for each other. That's what we're exploring tonight. And it starts with understanding the rules of the game. How do these future episodes actually work? What are the framing devices? What do they show us? And what do they deliberately leave out? The Simpsons has produced roughly 10 episodes that are set in the future, and they span from 1992 all the way to December 2025. Each one uses a different framing device, jumps to a different point in time, and shows us a different version of events. And because of how the show handles its floating timeline, no two of them really line up. But let's walk through them in order because the progression tells its own story about how the writer's thinking evolved over 3 decades. The first glimpse of the future came in 1992, in a season 4 episode called Itchy and Scratchy, the Movie. It's not really a future episode in the traditional sense. The main story is about Homer trying to discipline Bart by banning him from seeing the Itchy and Scratchy movie. But at the very end, there's a brief flash forward to the year 2042 or so, and we see Bart as a middle-aged man. He's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and Homer, now elderly, finally takes him to see the movie. It's a sweet little joke, a throwaway gag, but it planted a seed because it showed the writers that jumping into the future was something the audience responded to. Lisa's Wedding, Season 6, Episode 19. Lisa's Wedding, Season 6, Episode 19. And honestly, if they had never done another future episode after this one, it would still be legendary. The framing device is a fortune teller at a Renaissance fair who reads Lisa's palm and shows her a vision of her life at age 23, set in what the episode calls 2010. future, Lisa is studying at a university in England. She falls in love with a refined British student named Hugh Parkfield, and they get engaged. She brings Hugh home to Springfield to meet her family, and the episode becomes this beautiful, funny, deeply sad exploration of what happens when Lisa's two worlds collide. Hugh is horrified by Homer. He's appalled by the house, the town, the whole Simpson lifestyle. And when Lisa realizes that Hugh expects her to cut her family out of her life after the wedding, she calls the whole thing off. She chooses the Simpsons over the love of her life. The fortune teller tells her she'll find true love eventually, but we never see who with. And that's it. That's the end. It's a perfect episode. The animation is gorgeous, the jokes are sharp, and the emotional core, Lisa having to choose between the life she wants and the family she loves, hits different when you've watched the show long enough to understand how much that choice cost her. The episode was written by Greg Daniels, who would later go on to create the American version of The Office. And you can feel his sensibility in it. The humor is character-driven, not gag-driven. The emotional moments aren't undercut by jokes. The world building is specific and immersive, from the Big Ben hologram to the tiny details of Lisa's university life. It's a template that every future episode after it would either follow or react against. One detail that often gets overlooked in Lisa's wedding is the way it handles technology. The episode was made in 1995, and it imagines 2010 as having video phones, robotic librarians, and holographic advertisements. Some of these turned out to be remarkably accurate. Video calling became ubiquitous in exactly that time frame, but the episode also imagines things that didn't happen, like rolling walkways everywhere and automatic tie-tying machines. The writers weren't trying to predict the future with scientific accuracy. They were trying to create a world that felt believably different while keeping the emotional core recognizably human. And they nailed that balance. 5 years after that, in 2000, we got Bart to the Future, Season 11, Episode 17. This one has a completely different framing device. Bart visits a Native American casino and is shown a vision of his future by the casino's manager. And what he sees is bleak. Bart, at age 40, is a total failure. He's a washed-up musician who can't hold a gig, living with Ralph Wiggum, mooching off everyone he knows. He has a band called Sadgasm that plays terrible grunge music to empty rooms. Meanwhile, Lisa has become the first female president of the United States, and she's inherited a country that's been bankrupt by the previous administration, which the show specifically says was President Donald Trump's. Yeah, that happened in 2000. 16 years before Trump actually became president. The writers have said it was intended as a joke, the most absurd thing they could think of, a reality television star running the country into the ground. The fact that it actually happened is something we'll talk about later because the Simpsons prediction thing is its own whole rabbit hole. But what matters for now is what this episode says about Bart. Because while Lisa's wedding painted a nuanced, emotionally complex picture of Lisa's future, Bart to the Future is pretty brutal. Bart at 40 is pathetic. He's not tragic in a sympathetic way, he's just a loser. The episode doesn't give him the same emotional depth it gives Lisa, and some fans have always felt that was a missed opportunity. But it established something important about how the writers think about Bart's potential, which is that without intervention, without someone believing in him, Bart's natural trajectory is downward. In 2005, Season 16 gave us Future Drama, which uses an astrology machine owned by Professor Frink as its framing device. This one is set about 8 years in the future, making it roughly 2013, and it focuses on Bart and Lisa as high school seniors. It's the first future episode to deal with them as teenagers rather than adults, and it has a different energy because of that. Teenage Bart is dating a girl named Jenda, who dumps him because he has no future. Lisa has a full scholarship to Yale, but Mr. Burns steals it and gives it to Bart after Bart saves his life. In the end, Bart sees what Lisa's life becomes without that scholarship, married to Milhouse, miserable, working a dead-end job, and he gives it back to her. It's one of the first times a future episode shows Bart making a genuinely selfless choice, and it suggests that even when Bart fails, his capacity for love is what saves the people around him. This episode also gives us the darkest Homer future. Homer and Marge have separated. Homer blew their savings on an underwater house that immediately flooded, and Marge left him for Krusty the Clown. They reconcile by the end, but it's a real gut punch to see them apart because in the present-day show, their marriage is treated as unbreakable. The future episodes are the only place where the writers let that foundation crack. Then, in 2011, Season 23 gave us the big one, Holidays of Future Past. This is the episode that matters the most because it was written as a potential series finale. The showrunner, Al Jean, has confirmed this. At the time, the cast's contracts were being renegotiated and there was a real possibility the show would end. So the writers crafted an episode that jumped 30 years into the future to Christmas 2041 and tried to give every main character a real, satisfying ending. The episode opens with a montage of the family's Christmas cards over the years, each one showing the family getting a little older, a little more scattered. Bart's cards get increasingly depressing. Lisa's get increasingly formal. Maggie's get increasingly mysterious. It's a brilliant framing device because it compresses decades of change into about 60 seconds, and by the time the montage ends, you already feel the weight of time passing. And they did an incredible job with the rest of it. Bart, at 40-something, is divorced, living in his old elementary school building that's been converted into apartments called the Lofts at Springfield Elementary. His landlord is Principal Skinner. He has two sons, Jiff and Skippy, who barely know him and don't particularly like him. He's exactly the kind of deadbeat the show has been hinting he'd become. But the episode lets you feel how much that hurts him. On Christmas, he reconnects with his sons, and it's genuinely moving. Lisa is married to Milhouse. They have a teenage daughter named Zia, who lives most of her life plugged into something called the Ultranet, which is basically a full-immersion virtual reality internet. Lisa can't connect with her daughter, which is ironic given that Lisa herself was always the one who couldn't connect with her family. Zia turns out to secretly admire Lisa. And when Lisa discovers this, it's one of the sweetest moments in the whole series. Maggie is a famous rock star. She's pregnant. And in the episode's running gag, every time she's about to speak, something interrupts her. We never hear her voice. This was deliberate. The writers wanted to keep Maggie's speaking voice a mystery, and they held that card for another 14 years. Homer's elderly. He's freezing Grandpa Abraham Simpson in the basement, essentially keeping him alive through cryogenics but ignoring him, which is a dark mirror of how Grandpa has always been treated. But by the end of the episode, Homer unfreezes him, forgives him, and breaks the cycle of resentment between Simpson fathers and sons that has defined the family for generations. It's the emotional climax of the episode, and it works beautifully. The negotiations worked out, the show was renewed, and Holidays of Future Past didn't end up being the finale. But it's the closest thing the show has ever produced to a definitive statement about what happens to everyone. And almost every future episode since has existed in its shadow. 3 years later, Season 25 gave us a sequel called Days of Future Future, which takes place in the same timeline but gets weirder. Homer keeps dying from his own stupidity and being cloned, eventually getting reduced to a digital face living on a USB drive. Milhouse becomes a zombie. Marge, fed up with Homer dying and being replaced over and over, ejects his USB from the house. Bart's ex-wife, Jenda, is dating an alien. It's experimental and strange and doesn't have the emotional weight of its predecessor, but it shows the writers pushing the future concept in increasingly bizarre directions. Season 27's Barthood in 2015 took a completely different approach. Instead of jumping to one specific future moment, it told Bart's entire life story from age 6 to young adulthood as a parody of the Richard Linklater film Boyhood. This is, in a lot of ways, the most grounded and realistic future episode. There are no astrology machines, no fortune tellers, no Christmas card framing devices. It's just Bart growing up. And what it shows is devastating. At every stage of his life, Bart is overshadowed by Lisa. Homer invests all his parental energy in Lisa and barely notices Bart. Lisa gets the attention, the scholarships, the praise. Bart gets forgotten. But the episode doesn't leave him there. Bart discovers he's talented at art and BMX bike customization. And it's Lisa's honest feedback, telling him he's actually good at this and that he should do something with it, that finally gives him the confidence to pursue it. As an adult, Bart is successful in his own way, and he paints a secret mural on a wall near their childhood home as a tribute to Lisa, thanking her without ever saying it out loud. When Lisa sees it, she cries. When I first watched it, I almost did too. Season 29's Mr. Lisa's Opus in 2017 focuses on 18-year-old Lisa writing her Harvard admissions essay. The episode flashes back to 3 different birthdays that shaped her, and in the present, she's terrified of finally being among intellectual equals. She's been the smartest person in the room her entire life, and the idea of not being special anymore paralyzes her. 20-year-old Bart, who still lives at home and isn't doing much with his life, gives her a pep talk. He tells her she's going to be fine, and the fact that it's Bart, the underachiever, the screw-up, who gives Lisa the confidence to take on Harvard, says everything about who these two people really are to each other. Season 32's Mother and Child Reunion in 2021 shows a future where teenage Lisa shocks everyone by refusing to go to college. Instead, she starts a school for people who never had access to education. It expands nationwide, and she eventually becomes president. It's a different path than the other futures gave her, but it arrives at the same destination: Lisa leading, Lisa achieving, Lisa changing the world. And then there's the most recent one, Parahormonal Activity, Season 37, Episode 11, which aired in December 2025. This one only jumps about 5 years into the future, making it the most plausible future episode the show has ever done. Bart and Lisa are teenagers. Marge is going through perimenopause. Homer is dealing with testosterone changes and erectile dysfunction. And Maggie, now around 5 years old, finally speaks. She's voiced by Lindsay Lohan, and the episode does this clever bait and switch where Marge tells Maggie to rest her voice because she has laryngitis, making you think the old Maggie never talks gag will continue, but Maggie speaks anyway. For longtime fans, it was a genuinely shocking moment because the show had protected that mystery for over 3 decades. Ned Flanders remarries in this episode too, with Homer as his best man. The whole thing feels less like a wild science fiction future and more like a realistic glimpse at what these characters would look like if the timeline just advanced a few years. It's quieter than the other future episodes, more grounded, and it suggests that the writers might be thinking about the future in a more literal way now. So those are the 10 futures. 10 episodes spanning 33 years, from 1992 to 2025, each one showing us a different version of what happens next. And now that you know the landscape, we can do the really fun part, which is going character by character through every future and building the complete picture of each person's life. Let's start with the man himself, the one who somehow stays exactly the same whether he's 36 or 86, Homer J. Simpson. Homer Simpson has had the same job for over 35 years at television. He sits at his console at the Springfield nuclear power plant, eats donuts, occasionally causes a meltdown, and somehow never gets permanently fired. He drinks at Moe's Tavern. He strangles Bart. He forgets anniversaries. He says "doh" when things go wrong, which is constantly. He is, by almost any measurable standard, a terrible employee, a mediocre husband, and a questionable father. And he's also one of the most beloved fictional characters ever created, because underneath all of that, Homer loves his family with a sincerity that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. So what happens to Homer in the future? The answer across every single future episode is basically the same thing that happens to Homer in the present. Nothing. Homer doesn't change, he doesn't grow, he doesn't evolve, he doesn't suddenly become a better person, or learn from his mistakes, or develop new skills, or discover hidden depths. Homer in the future is just Homer, but older. And honestly, that consistency is kind of the point. Let's trace him through each future. In Lisa's wedding, set in 2010, Homer is visibly older but still working at the power plant. Still the same guy. When Lisa brings her British fiancé Hugh home to Springfield, Homer is at his most embarrassingly Homer. He's loud, he's crude, he breaks things, he says the wrong thing at every possible moment. Hugh is horrified by him. And the episode makes you feel that horror. You understand why Hugh wants Lisa to cut Homer out of their lives after the wedding. But here's the thing the episode does so well. Homer never knows any of this is happening. He doesn't know Hugh is disgusted by him. He doesn't know Lisa is being pressured to choose. He just loves his daughter and wants to give her a nice pig roast for her wedding because that's what he thinks love looks like. And when Lisa calls off the wedding to protect her family, Homer doesn't even fully understand what she's done or why. He just knows his little girl came home, and that makes him happy. It's a devastating portrait of Homer because it's so honest. He's not a villain. He's not even negligent. He's just limited in ways he doesn't understand, and his love is real even when his ability to express it properly is completely absent. In Bart to the Future, set around 2030, Homer's retired. He and Marge are living together peacefully, and this is actually one of the more optimistic Homer futures because it suggests that once the kids are gone and the responsibilities lighten, Homer and Marge settle into something comfortable. He's still Homer, he's still watching TV and eating too much, but there's a calmness to him that the present-day Homer doesn't always have. The chaos has quieted down. Future drama from 2005 gives us the darkest Homer. In this version, set about 8 years ahead, Homer made a catastrophic financial decision. He bought an underwater house. It flooded immediately, obviously, and he lost the family savings. Marge left him for Krusty the Clown. This is the one future where Homer's stupidity has actual permanent consequences, where his pattern of bad decisions finally costs him his marriage. He and Marge reconcile by the episode's end, but the image of Homer alone, broke, and separated from his wife is genuinely unsettling because it feels like the most realistic possible outcome of 35 years of Homer being Homer. Then there's Holidays of Future Past, the big one from 2011, set in 2041. Homer is elderly now, and he's doing something really dark. He's keeping his father, Grandpa Simpson, frozen in the basement, essentially cryogenically preserved, alive but ignored. And this is significant because it mirrors the way Homer has always treated Grandpa. In the present-day show, Homer dumps Grandpa at the Springfield retirement castle and forgets about him. Grandpa calls and Homer hangs up. Grandpa visits and Homer falls asleep. It's played for laughs most of the time, but the future episode takes that joke and extends it to its logical conclusion, which is that Homer would literally freeze his father rather than deal with him. But the episode doesn't leave it there. On Christmas, Homer has a change of heart. He unfreezes Grandpa. He lets him back into the family. And in doing so, he breaks the cycle. Because in the Simpsons universe, every generation of Simpson men has resented their father. Grandpa resented his father, Homer resents Grandpa. Bart, in the same episode, is struggling to connect with his own sons. The curse goes all the way back. And Homer, of all people, Homer, the guy who never changes, is the one who finally stops it. He forgives his father. And that act of forgiveness, from the character least likely to grow, is what makes it land so hard. I want to sit with this moment for a second because I think it's the most important single scene in any Simpsons future episode. The show has spent decades establishing that Homer and Grandpa have a terrible relationship. Homer dumps Grandpa at the retirement home. Homer avoids Grandpa's calls. Homer barely tolerates Grandpa's presence. And the show always plays this for laughs because Homer's irritation with Grandpa is funny, the same way Homer's irritation with everything is funny. But in the future, when the laughs are stripped away and the consequences are allowed to accumulate, that irritation becomes something much uglier. Homer isn't just avoiding his father, he's frozen him. He's put him in stasis. He's taken the metaphor of putting your parent on ice and made it literal. And the horror of that image, an old man frozen in a basement by his own son, is the show finally looking at its own joke and saying, "This isn't actually funny, is it? This is what neglect looks like when you follow it to its logical conclusion." And then Homer thaws him out. He brings him upstairs. He lets him be part of the family again. And in that act, he's not just forgiving Grandpa, he's forgiving himself. He's forgiving himself for being a bad son. He's forgiving himself for repeating the pattern. He's saying, "It stops here. I'm not going to pass this down to Bart. The chain breaks with me." That's growth. That's actual, genuine character growth. And it happens in a future episode because that's the only place the show allows it. Homer can grow in the future because the future doesn't reset. The future lets consequences stick. The future lets forgiveness mean something. Days of Future Future, the 2014 sequel, takes Homer's future in the weirdest possible direction. In this timeline, Homer keeps dying. Not once, over and over. He dies from his own stupidity, gets cloned, dies again, gets cloned again. Eventually, the technology can't replicate a full body anymore, and Homer is reduced to a digital consciousness, a face living on a USB stick that has to be plugged into things to interact with the world. Marge understandably gets tired of this. How many times can you watch your husband die and come back before the grief cycle becomes meaningless? She ejects his USB from the house. Digital Homer bounces around Springfield, finding himself in a strange existential crisis. He's technically alive, but is he still Homer? The episode treats this almost like a philosophical thought experiment wrapped in a Simpsons gag. And even as a face on a USB drive, Homer is still Homer. He still wants Marge. He still tries to strangle Bart. He still says, "Dio." The writers made this darkly funny point that Homer's personality is so deeply embedded in who he is that you could strip away his entire physical body and he'd still be the same guy. Whether that's touching or horrifying depends on how you look at it. There's actually a really interesting philosophical thread running through Homer's future arcs that the show never explicitly addresses, but is there if you look for it. The question of what makes you you. In Days of Future Future, Homer has been cloned so many times that the question of whether each new Homer is the real Homer becomes unavoidable. Marge treats each clone as a new person, which is why she eventually gives up. She can't keep falling in love with someone who is technically a different man every time. But Homer, or at least the consciousness that calls itself Homer, doesn't see a difference. He remembers being Homer. He feels like Homer. He loves Marge the way Homer loves Marge. Is that enough? Is memory enough to make you the same person? The show plays this for laughs, but the question underneath the laughter is genuinely profound. Because in a way, we're all different people than we were 10 or 20 years ago. Our cells have been replaced. Our memories have been altered by time. The person you were at 20 is, in a meaningful sense, not the same person you are now. And yet you're still you. Homer gets cloned and he's still Homer. You wake up every morning and you're still you. What is it that persists? For Homer, the answer seems to be love. Specifically, his love for Marge, his love for his kids, and his love for donuts. Those three things survive every clone, every death, every rebirth. They are the core of who Homer Simpson is. Everything else, his body, his intelligence, his abilities, is negotiable. But the love stays. That's sort of beautiful if you think about it long enough. The most recent future parahormonal activity from December 2025 gives us Homer about 5 years from now, dealing with something the show has never really tackled before. Testosterone decline, erectile dysfunction, the physical realities of a man in his mid to late 40s whose body is starting to change. And what's interesting about this version of Homer is that the hormonal shift actually makes him calmer, more emotionally stable, less impulsive. For possibly the first time in any version of The Simpsons, Homer becomes the most emotionally grounded member of the family, and it's purely because his body chemistry changed. The episode plays this for comedy, obviously, but there's a real observation buried in there about how much of Homer's behavior over the years has been driven by impulse and testosterone rather than genuine character flaws. So what does all of this tell us about Homer Simpson's future? It tells us that Homer is essentially a constant, a fixed point. Every other character in the Simpsons universe changes at least a little bit across the future episodes. They grow, they struggle, they evolve. But Homer just stays Homer. He'll still be working at the plant or retired from the plant. He'll still love Marge but not always know how to show it. He'll still forget things and break things and say the wrong thing at exactly the wrong moment. He'll still strangle Bart. He'll still worship donuts. And the writers seem to view this as both Homer's tragedy and his redemption. His inability to change is why his family suffers. It's why Marge almost leaves him in multiple futures. It's why Bart becomes a deadbeat, because Homer was never the father Bart needed. It's why Lisa has to choose between her family and the life she deserves. But Homer's inability to change is also why the family stays together. Because Homer's love, stupid and clumsy and inarticulate as it is the one thing in the Simpsons universe that never wavers. He loves Marge, he loves his kids, he loves his life, even though he complains about it constantly. And when the future strips everything else away, when the house is underwater and the marriage is falling apart and he's literally been reduced to a face on a USB stick, that love is still there, unchanged, unchangeable. If you're still here and you're still awake, we've got so much more to cover. But before we keep going, make sure you've subscribed to the channel if you haven't already. There's a lot of Simpsons future left to explore. And the next character we're looking at might be the saddest story of them all. Not Bart, although his is sad too. We're talking about Marge, the woman who gave everything to everyone and never once got what she deserved in return. Marge Simpson doesn't get enough credit, not from the other characters on the show, and honestly, not from the audience either. She's the glue. She's the reason the Simpson household functions at all. She cooks, she cleans, she manages the finances that Homer keeps destroying. She raises 3 children with almost no help. She keeps Homer alive despite his best efforts to kill himself through sheer stupidity. And she does all of this while maintaining a level of patience that borders on the supernatural. In the present-day show, Marge is often used as the straight man. She's the one who reacts sensibly to insane situations. She's the voice of reason in a house full of chaos. And because of that, she can sometimes feel like the least interesting Simpson. Homer is funny, Bart is wild, Lisa is brilliant, Maggie is mysterious, Marge is just there, holding things together, making sure everyone eats dinner. But the future episodes reveal something about Marge that the regular episodes only hint at, which is that being the person who holds everything together comes at an enormous personal cost. And the futures are the only place where the show fully acknowledges that cost. Let's start with Lisa's wedding. In this episode, Marge is the warm, supportive mother you'd expect her to be. She's excited about the wedding, she wants Lisa to be happy, she's decorating, she's planning, she's doing all the things Marge does. But there's this one small moment where you see Marge looking at Lisa and Hugh together, and there's something in her expression that's hard to read. Pride, maybe, but also something like relief, because Lisa found someone who can give her a life that Springfield never could. And for Marge, who chose to stay in Springfield, who chose Homer, who chose this life, watching her daughter escape must feel like validation and loss at the same time. Bart to the future doesn't give Marge much to do. She's there, she's supportive of Lisa's presidency, she's still with Homer. It's a background role, which is actually fitting because Marge being in the background while everyone else gets the spotlight is kind of her whole deal. But future drama cracks the foundation open. In this episode, Marge has left Homer. She's dating Krusty the Clown. Let me say that again. Marge, the most loyal woman in Springfield, the woman who has put up with Homer accidentally selling the house, Homer causing nuclear meltdowns, Homer forgetting their anniversary year after year, Homer being Homer in every conceivable way, has finally reached her limit. And her breaking point wasn't some dramatic betrayal or affair, it was the underwater house. Homer's stupidity finally cost them their financial security, and Marge walked away. This matters because it shows that Marge's patience, which the show normally treats as infinite, actually has a bottom. The future episodes are the only place where the writers let Marge say, "I've had enough." In the present-day show, episodes where Marge considers leaving Homer always reset by the end. She always stays, the status quo always wins. But in the future, where consequences are allowed to stick, Marge's exhaustion becomes real. Holidays of Future Past pulls Marge back into her traditional role, and she excels at it. She's the elderly matriarch hosting Christmas, trying to get her scattered family back together for one night. Bart is a mess, Lisa is stressed, Maggie is about to give birth, Homer is hiding Grandpa in the basement. And Marge is in the kitchen, making everything work, holding the center while the edges fray. The episode treats this as beautiful, which it is, but it's also quietly devastating if you think about it. 30 years from now, Marge is still doing the same job she's always done. Holding the family together, putting everyone else first, making sure Christmas happens. Has anyone in any of these futures ever asked Marge what she wants? Has anyone ever said, "Hey Marge, what would make you happy? What are your dreams? What did you give up to keep this family alive?" The answer is no. Nobody asks. Nobody ever asks. Days of Future finally lets Marge reach a breaking point that sticks. Homer has died and been cloned so many times that the emotional weight of losing her husband has been completely devalued. How do you grieve someone who keeps coming back? How do you love someone who is technically a new person every time? Marge unplugs Homer's USB drive and tells him to leave. It's not dramatic, it's not a screaming fight, it's just tired. She's tired. And that tiredness is more heartbreaking than any argument could be. There's something really important happening in that moment. The writers are finally, after decades, acknowledging what Marge's life actually costs her. In the present-day show, Marge's suffering is played for sympathy, but never for real tragedy. Oh, poor Marge. Homer forgot their anniversary again. Laugh track. Move on. But in the future, where time has weight and actions have consequences, Marge's decades of sacrifice add up to something that looks a lot like despair. She didn't leave Homer because he did one terrible thing. She left because he did 1,000 small, terrible things over and over for 30 years, and she finally just ran out of the energy to pretend it was okay. And then there's parahormonal activity, the most recent future episode, which does something with Marge that no other episode has ever attempted. It acknowledges that Marge's body is changing. She's going through perimenopause, hot flashes, mood swings, the physical reality of being a woman in her late 40s. And the episode doesn't play this entirely for laughs. There are moments of real vulnerability where Marge is dealing with something she can't control, something that has nothing to do with Homer or the kids or the house, something that's just hers. Her body is changing, her children are growing up and pulling away, and for the first time, Marge has to figure out who she is when she's not holding the family together. It's a small thing, maybe, but it's significant because the show has never really let Marge have her own crisis before. Her crises are always about other people. Homer did something stupid, Bart got in trouble, Lisa needs support. Marge's personal identity has always been defined by what she does for everyone else. The future episodes are the first and sometimes the only place where the show asks what happens to the caretaker when there's nobody left to take care of. The Marge pattern across all futures comes down to this. She endures, she sacrifices, she holds the center, and the show, to its credit, eventually acknowledges that this isn't just admirable, it's also unfair. Marge deserved more. Marge deserved someone who noticed what she was doing. Marge deserved a life where she wasn't always the one making things work for everyone else. And the fact that the show can only explore this in future episodes because the status quo of the regular show requires Marge to stay patient and stay loyal and stay home tells you something about the limitations of the format. The Simpsons needs Marge to hold things together, so the only time the writers can let her fall apart is in a timeline that doesn't count. There's a conversation among Simpsons fans that comes up every few years about whether the show has done right by Marge. And it's a legitimate question. Marge is one of the 6 principal characters. She's been voiced by Julie Kavner for over 35 years. She's one of the most recognizable animated characters in history. And yet, compared to Homer, Bart, and Lisa, she gets remarkably few episodes that are truly, deeply about her. Her episodes tend to be about her reaction to something someone else did. Homer gambled. Bart got expelled. Lisa is sad. Marge responds. The future episodes partially address this imbalance, but they also reveal it more starkly. Because even in the futures, Marge's story is defined by other people. She's dealing with Homer leaving, Homer dying, Homer being cloned. She's dealing with her kids growing up. She's going through perimenopause, which is at least personal to her. But even that storyline is framed around how her changes affect the family dynamic. Marge has never gotten her own Barthood. She's never gotten her own Lisa's wedding. She's never gotten an episode that says, here is Marge's life on her own terms, defined by her own choices rather than her responses to everyone else's choices. And while that might be a limitation of the format, it's also a missed opportunity. Because Marge's backstory is genuinely fascinating. She was a bright kid who fell in love with Homer in high school and gradually set aside her own ambitions to build a life with him. There's a whole story there about roads not taken, about the person Marge might have become if she'd gone to art school or traveled or done anything other than become the person everyone needed her to be. The future episodes hint at that story without ever fully telling it. And maybe the definitive Marge future episode hasn't been written yet. Maybe it's coming in season 38 or 39, or maybe the show will end without ever giving Marge the standalone future she deserves. Either way, what the existing futures tell us about Marge is both beautiful and heartbreaking. She gave everything. She got back less than she deserved. And the family she held together kept spinning without ever stopping to say thank you. Anyway, let's move on to the character who gets the most screen time in future episodes, and arguably the most emotionally complex story of any Simpson in any timeline. We need to talk about Bart. Bart Simpson is 10 years old, and he's been 10 years old for over 35 years. In that time, he's skateboarded through Springfield approximately 800 times, written on the chalkboard at the start of approximately 800 episodes, and driven his parents, his teachers, and his sister to the edge of sanity. So many times that it's become the background noise of American pop culture. He's the underachiever, the troublemaker, the kid who could do better if he tried, but refuses to try because trying is for losers and nerds and his sister Lisa. But what happens when the underachiever grows up? The future episodes spend more time on Bart than on any other character, and they give him the widest range of possible outcomes. And I think that's because Bart is the character the writers are most unsure about. They know what happens to Lisa. She succeeds. They know what happens to Homer. He stays the same. They know what happens to Marge. She endures. But Bart could go anywhere. And the writers have spent 33 years trying to figure out where. The first glimpse in Itchy and Scratchy, the movie from 1992, is the most optimistic Bart future by a mile. It's just a quick flash forward, a gag really, but it shows 50-something-year-old Bart as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. The implication is that Homer's decision to discipline Bart, to actually follow through on a punishment for once, set him on a path to greatness. It's a joke but it's also the most hopeful statement the show has ever made about Bart's potential. If someone believes in him, if someone holds him accountable, Bart could be anything. Then Bart to the Future in 2000 went in the exact opposite direction. Bart at 40 is a disaster. He's been expelled from every school, failed at every career, burned every bridge. He's a musician in a terrible band called Sadgasm, playing grunge music 15 years after grunge was relevant. He lives with Ralph Wiggum. He mooches off everyone. He eventually crashes Lisa's presidential inauguration and nearly destroys her administration. This is Bart with no intervention, no accountability, no one who believed in him. This is what happens when the underachiever is left to underachieve forever. And the episode is pretty mean about it. There's not a lot of sympathy for 40-year-old Bart. He's more of a punchline than a person. The writers seem to view him the way Springfield views him, as a lost cause, a kid who is always going to amount to nothing. It's the cruelest possible reading of Bart Simpson's character. Future drama in 2005 started to complicate things. Teenage Bart in this episode is dating a girl named Jenda, who dumps him because she sees no future with him. His grades are terrible, his prospects are terrible, his family is falling apart because Homer and Marge have separated. When Mr. Burns gives Bart Lisa's Yale scholarship as a reward for saving his life, Bart accepts it at first. But then he sees what happens to Lisa without that scholarship. She ends up married to Milhouse, working a miserable job, her brilliance completely wasted, and Bart gives the scholarship back. This is important. This is the first time a future episode shows Bart choosing someone else's happiness over his own advantage. He had the golden ticket. He could have gone to Yale, could have changed his entire trajectory, but he looked at his sister, the person he fights with constantly, the person he's jealous of, the person who has everything he doesn't, and he decided her future mattered more than his. That's not something a lost cause does. That's something a deeply good person does when nobody is watching. Holidays of Future Past in 2011 built the most detailed version of adult Bart. He's in his 40s, divorced, living in the lofts at Springfield Elementary, which is now a converted apartment building managed by Principal Skinner. His apartment is the same classroom he used to terrorize as a kid, and there's something painfully poetic about that. He's literally living in the ruins of his childhood. If you know anything about real estate trends in American cities, this detail is even more pointed than it seems. Across the country, former schools and churches and public buildings have been converted into luxury apartments and condos. The institutions that were built to serve communities get repurposed for profit. And Holidays of Future Past takes that real-world phenomenon and makes it personal. Bart's school, the place that was supposed to prepare him for adulthood, is now the place where he lives because adulthood didn't work out. The desks are gone, the chalkboard is gone, Mrs. Crabapple is gone, but the room is the same and Bart is still there 30 years later, still not quite fitting in, still not quite succeeding. Still the same kid sitting in the same room, just older and sadder and more aware of how much he's lost. His ex-wife won't let him see his sons, Jiff and Skippy. When they come for Christmas, they clearly don't want to be there. They think their dad is a loser, and Bart knows they think that, and it kills him, but he doesn't know how to fix it because Bart has never known how to fix things with words. He's not articulate like Lisa. He's not charming in the traditional sense. He's just a guy who loves his kids and has no idea how to show it in a way they can receive. But over the course of the episode, Bart does something small and genuine. He just tries. He doesn't try to be cool. He doesn't try to impress them. He just shows up and keeps showing up, and by Christmas morning, his sons are sitting next to him and things are a little bit better. Not fixed, not perfect, just better. And for Bart, who has spent his entire life being told he'll never amount to anything, a little bit better is its own kind of miracle. Then, Barthood in 2015 changed the entire conversation. This episode, this boyhood parody that traces Bart's life from 6 years old to adulthood, is maybe the most emotionally honest 22 minutes the show has ever produced. Because it doesn't just show us what Bart becomes, it shows us why. At every stage of Bart's life in this episode, Lisa is there, doing better. When they're kids, Lisa gets the attention. When they're teens, Lisa gets the awards. When they're applying to colleges, Lisa gets accepted everywhere. Homer, who should be the one person who gives Bart unconditional support, pours everything into Lisa instead. Not because he doesn't love Bart, but because Homer's a man who responds to obvious success, and Lisa's success is obvious while Bart's potential is hidden. Bart drifts, he's angry, he's jealous. He does stupid things and gets in trouble. He watches Lisa succeed and feels like a failure by comparison. And the show doesn't sugarcoat this. It lets Bart sit in that feeling for a long time. It lets the audience feel what it's like to be the kid who gets overlooked. But here's where it gets beautiful. At some point, Bart discovers he's genuinely talented at building things. Custom BMX bikes specifically. He takes raw materials and turns them into these incredible functional works of art. He's got the hands of a craftsman and the eye of an artist, but nobody's ever told him that because his whole life has been measured by academic standards he was never going to meet. Lisa is the one who sees it. Lisa, who has been the source of so much of Bart's frustration, is the one who tells him he's actually good at this. She doesn't patronize him. She doesn't throw him a pity compliment. She just honestly tells him that what he's making is impressive and that he should take it seriously. And for Bart, who has spent his entire life being told he's not good enough, hearing that from the person who actually is good at everything, that changes something in him. As an adult, Bart is a successful artist and fabricator. He's not famous. He's not rich. He doesn't become Chief Justice or President or anything like that. He just found the thing he's good at and did it well enough to build a life around it. And one night, he goes to a wall near their old house and paints a mural, a tribute to Lisa, a thank you for seeing him when nobody else did. He never tells her about it. She discovers it on her own. And when she sees it, she understands exactly what it means. That mural is, for my money, the single most emotionally powerful moment in any Simpsons future episode. It says everything about who Bart is without him having to say a single word. He's not good at expressing love through language. He's not eloquent like Lisa or enthusiastic like Homer. He shows love through action, through creation, through quiet gestures that you have to be paying attention to notice. And that has been true of Bart Simpson since the very first episode. Think about this for a second. In the present-day show, Bart's acts of love are always hidden. He'll insult Lisa to her face and then secretly do something kind for her when she's not looking. He'll torment Homer relentlessly and then defend him against anyone else who tries to do the same thing. He'll pretend not to care about anything and then, in the quiet moment at the end of the episode, do something that reveals he cares about everything. The mural in Barthood is the ultimate expression of this pattern. It's Bart taking his one genuine talent, the thing he's actually good at, the thing that nobody except Lisa ever acknowledged, and using it to say thank you to the one person who believed in him. He doesn't sign it. He doesn't point it out. He doesn't tell anyone he did it. He just makes it and walks away. And the mural sits there on a wall in Springfield, waiting for Lisa to find it. And when she does find it, the episode doesn't give us a big dramatic scene. Lisa doesn't call Bart and thank him. They don't have a tearful conversation over the phone. She just sees it and she understands and she cries. Because Lisa speaks Bart's language. She always has. She knows that Bart can't say, "I love you" out loud, but he can paint it on a wall. And that painting is more sincere than any speech could be, because Bart put hours into it, days probably, alone in the dark, working on something that nobody asked him to make and nobody was paying him to create. He did it because he wanted to, because Lisa deserved it, because that's who Bart is when nobody is watching. If you don't understand why Simpsons fans get emotional about Barthood, now you do. It's not a complicated episode. It's not flashy or clever or packed with celebrity guest voices. It's just a story about a boy who grew up feeling invisible and the sister who saw him anyway. And the quiet, permanent way he said thank you. Mr. Lisa's opus in 2017 gives us 20-year-old Bart, and he's exactly what you'd expect. Still living at home, not doing much with his life, still fundamentally Bart. But when Lisa is scared about going to Harvard, Bart is the one who talks her down. He tells her she's going to be great. He tells her the world needs her. And he says it with this casual sincerity that only Bart could pull off. Because Bart doesn't do inspirational speeches. He just tells the truth. Parahormonal activity from 2025 shows us teenage Bart, and he's perfectly teenage. Insatiable appetite, obsessed with graphic novels, sneaking looks at inappropriate content on the family's smart fridge, driving Marge's car terribly. He's a teenager being a teenager, and the episode lets that be funny without making it feel dangerous or tragic. It's the lightest Bart future we've gotten, maybe because the jump is so small. 5 years from now, Bart is just a teenager. He hasn't had time to become a failure yet. He's still got all his potential ahead of him. And I think that's why the future episodes hit so hard when it comes to Bart. Because in the present day show, Bart is 10. He's got his whole life ahead of him. And the future episodes show us that life splitting into all these different paths, some hopeful, some devastating, some somewhere in between. The writers can't agree on what happens to Bart because the truth is that what happens to Bart depends entirely on whether anyone gives him a chance. Whether anyone looks past the pranks and the bad grades and the underachiever and proud of it t-shirt and sees the kid underneath who just wants someone to believe in him. Some futures give him that. Barthood gives him Lisa's honesty. Itchy and Scratchy, the movie, gives him Homer's discipline. And in those futures, Bart does well, not spectacularly, not the way Lisa does, but well enough, human enough, happy enough. Other futures don't give him anything. Bart to the future leaves him alone with his failures. Holidays of future past lets him stumble into deadbeat fatherhood. And in those futures, Bart is exactly what everyone always predicted he'd be. A disappointment. But even in the worst futures, even when Bart is at his lowest, there's always a moment where his heart shows through. He gives Lisa the scholarship. He reconnects with his sons on Christmas. He paints the mural. He gives the pep talk. Every single future, no matter how bleak, includes at least one scene where Bart Simpson proves that being good at tests and being good at life are two completely different things. Before we keep going, hit that subscribe button if you're still with me. We're maybe a third of the way through this, and the next character we need to talk about is someone whose future is, in a lot of ways, the mirror image of Bart's. Where Bart struggles to achieve and finds love, Lisa achieves everything and struggles to find love. Let's talk about Lisa Simpson. But actually, before we get to Lisa, I want to linger on Bart for one more moment. Because there's something about the way the show handles Bart's future that tells you a lot about how television thinks about boys and men in general. Think about it. Bart Simpson was the face of the show in its early years. He was the one on the t-shirts. He was the one kids quoted on the playground. Eat my shorts. Ay caramba. Don't have a cow, man. He was a cultural phenomenon, a rebel icon, a kid who represented every child's desire to push back against authority and get away with it. And then the show grew up around him. As the writing got more sophisticated, as the jokes got sharper and the emotional beats got deeper, the center of gravity shifted from Bart to Homer and Lisa. Bart was still there. He was still important. But the show seemed to realize that a 10-year-old rebel is funny, while a 40-year-old rebel is sad. The same qualities that make Bart charming as a kid, his defiance, his refusal to follow rules, his suspicion of authority, become tragic when he's an adult who still hasn't figured out how to function in the world. And the future episodes reflect this shift. The writers clearly love Bart. They give him more future screen time than anyone else. They give him the most emotionally complex arcs, but they also can't quite figure out how to make him succeed because Bart's success can't look like Lisa's success. Bart isn't going to become president or go to Harvard or start a foundation. His victories have to be smaller, quieter, more personal. A reconnection with his sons, a career in art that nobody outside his neighborhood knows about. A mural on a wall that only one person will ever understand. There's a whole conversation to be had about how our culture treats underachievers versus overachievers. And The Simpsons' future episodes are one of the most interesting contributions to that conversation. Because the show seems to be arguing that Bart's way of moving through the world, emotional, impulsive, led by the heart rather than the head, is not lesser than Lisa's way. It's just different. And a society that only values Lisa's kind of success, academic, professional, measurable, is a society that will always fail people like Bart. In Barthood, when Bart finds success as an artist and fabricator, it's not because he finally buckled down and studied. It's because he found a field where his specific kind of intelligence, spatial, tactile, creative, actually matters. The system didn't adapt to Bart. Bart found a place outside the system where he could be himself. And that's both inspiring and depressing because it means the system still doesn't work for people like him. He had to go around it. The real tragedy of Bart Simpson isn't that he fails. It's that the world he lives in doesn't have room for the kind of person he is. And the future episodes, across all their contradictions, are united in recognizing that, okay? Now let's actually talk about Lisa. Lisa Simpson is 8 years old, and she is the smartest person in Springfield. Not the smartest kid. The smartest person. She plays saxophone like a prodigy. She reads at a college level. She understands politics, ethics, philosophy, environmental science, and the collected works of every author her family has never heard of. She is a Buddhist, vegetarian, feminist activist, living in a house with a man who once ate a 10-pound bag of flour because he thought it was sugar. Lisa is brilliant and Lisa is lonely. Those two things have been connected since the beginning of the show, and the future episodes take that connection and turn it into something that feels almost like destiny. In every single version of Lisa's future, she achieves great things. And in almost every single version, she pays for those achievements with isolation. Lisa's wedding is the episode that sets the template. Lisa, at 23, is studying at a prestigious British university. She's articulate, she's cultured, she's everything her upbringing said she couldn't be. And she falls in love with Hugh Parkfield, who is basically the perfect match for her on paper. He's British, he's educated, he's refined, he reads the same books, he thinks the same thoughts. For the first time in her life, Lisa has found someone who speaks her language. And then she brings him home to Springfield. The collision between Hugh's world and Homer's world is both hilarious and agonizing. Hugh sees the Simpson house and is visibly shaken. He meets Homer and has to physically restrain his revulsion. He encounters Bart, who's now a professional loser, and he can barely be polite. And the episode slowly reveals that Hugh's plan was always to marry Lisa and then isolate her from her family. He doesn't just want to build a life with Lisa. He wants to rescue her from being a Simpson. And Lisa, who has spent her entire childhood feeling trapped in Springfield, who has dreamed about escaping this town and these people since she was old enough to dream, makes the choice that defines her character across every future. She stays, she chooses the Simpsons. She chooses Homer's pig roast over Hugh's sophisticated world. She chooses Bart's immaturity over Hugh's polish. She chooses Marge's simple warmth over everything England has to offer. She does this because Lisa Simpson, for all her brilliance, understands not. And walking away from that, even for not, and walking away from that, even for love, even for the life she's always wanted, would make her someone she doesn't want to be. The fortune teller tells Lisa she'll find true love eventually, but we never see who with. And that unanswered question hangs over every Lisa future that follows. Bart to the future gives us Lisa as President of the United States, the first female heterosexual president. A joke that dates the episode, but whatever. She's brilliant, she's principled, and she's inherited a national disaster. The country has been bankrupted by the previous administration, specifically by President Donald Trump. And Lisa has to clean up the mess. She raises taxes, she fights Congress, she does the hard, unglamorous work of governing. But the episode also shows her surrounded by yes men, overwhelmed by bureaucracy, and having to deal with Bart crashing into her administration and making everything harder. It's a vision of Lisa at the absolute peak of achievement, running the entire country, and she still can't escape her family. She still can't have a personal life that's separate from the chaos of being a Simpson. The presidency is just Springfield on a bigger scale, with Bart still messing things up and Lisa still cleaning up after him. Future drama shows us what happens when Lisa's path gets derailed. When Mr. Burns gives her Yale scholarship to Bart, we see a flash forward within a flash forward of what Lisa's life becomes without it. She marries Milhouse. She works a job that doesn't challenge her. She's miserable. Her brilliance is completely wasted. And this version of Lisa's future is interesting because it suggests that Lisa's success isn't guaranteed. She needs opportunity. She needs the door to open. Without that scholarship, without that chance, Lisa's intelligence becomes a source of frustration rather than fulfillment. She's too smart for her life, but stuck in it anyway. This also introduces the idea of Lisa ending up with Milhouse, which becomes a recurring theme across the futures. In future drama, it's presented as Lisa's worst-case scenario. But in Holidays of Future Past, Lisa and Milhouse are married and it's treated as normal, even bittersweet. They have a daughter named Zia who is brilliant and rebellious and lives most of her life plugged into the ultranet. Lisa can't connect with her. And there's an incredible irony in that. Lisa, who spent her entire childhood desperate for someone to understand her, has a daughter she can't understand. Lisa, who felt invisible in her own family, has a child who prefers a virtual world to the real one. The cycle repeats, just in a different direction. Lisa's mother couldn't understand her intellectually. Lisa can't understand her daughter technologically. The gap changes, but the loneliness stays the same. The Milhouse thing is worth lingering on. Across the futures, Lisa ends up with Milhouse more often than not. And that choice, or maybe that drift, says something profound about what Lisa actually values versus what she thinks she values. Milhouse is not her intellectual equal. He's not sophisticated. He's not cultured. He's kind of pathetic, if we're being honest. But he's loyal. He's been in love with Lisa since they were kids, and he's never stopped. And in a life full of people who admire Lisa's intelligence but don't really know her, Milhouse is the one person who loves her completely, IQ be damned. Lisa's ending up with Milhouse isn't a failure. It's a surrender in the best sense of the word. She stops looking for the perfect match and accepts the person who is always there. And there's something weirdly comforting about that, even if it means Lisa never finds the grand love story she deserved. I think the writers keep returning to Milhouse as Lisa's partner because he represents something the show deeply believes in, which is that love isn't about finding someone who matches you. It's about finding someone who stays. Hugh Parkfield matched Lisa intellectually. They liked the same books, had the same conversations, existed in the same rarefied intellectual world. And he would have left the moment things got difficult. He would have cut out her family like pruning a dead branch. Hugh loved the idea of Lisa. Milhouse loves Lisa, the actual flawed, complicated, sometimes difficult person. And he loves her not because she's smart or accomplished or destined for greatness, but because she once smiled at him on the first day of school and he never recovered. That's a different kind of love than what Lisa always imagined for herself. It's smaller, it's quieter, It's not the stuff of romance novels or Shakespeare or the great love stories Lisa grew up reading, but it's real and it's permanent. And in a show that's obsessed with the question of what lasts, Milhouse's devotion to Lisa is one of the few things that genuinely does. There's also something to be said about the way the show treats intelligence and romantic fulfillment as inversely related for Lisa. The smarter she gets, the lonelier she becomes. The more she achieves, the harder it is to connect. It's as though the writers are suggesting that above a certain level of intelligence, the pool of people who can truly understand you shrinks to almost nothing. And rather than waiting for the perfect person who doesn't exist, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is accept the imperfect person who does. Barthood shows Lisa from Bart's perspective, which means we see her achievements from the outside. She's perfect. She gets every award, every scholarship, every approval from Homer. She's the golden child. But the episode also shows her loneliness from a distance. She dates Milhouse for a while, then Nelson, then someone else. She never seems settled. She's always moving, always achieving, always pushing forward, and you get the sense that forward motion is Lisa's way of avoiding the realization that she doesn't know where she's actually going. The beautiful thing about Barthood is that it shows Lisa's relationship with Bart from both sides. She's frustrated with him. She outperforms him. She gets all the attention he doesn't, but she also sees him. She sees his talent when nobody else does. And her honest feedback, the moment where she tells him his art is actually good, becomes the turning point of his entire life. Lisa saves Bart without even realizing she's doing it, and Bart saves Lisa right back with that mural she discovers years later. Mr. Lisa's opus might be the most psychologically interesting Lisa future. She's 18, she's been accepted to Harvard. This should be the happiest day of her life. But she's terrified. Because for the first time ever, Lisa is going to be in a room full of people who are as smart as she is. She won't be special anymore. She won't be the genius in a town of idiots. She'll be average. And for Lisa Simpson, who has built her entire identity around being the smartest person in the room, the idea of being average is more frightening than failure. Bart's pep talk in this episode is perfect. He doesn't try to be profound. He doesn't give a speech about believing in yourself. He just tells Lisa in his own Bart way that she's going to be fine. And the reason this works is because Bart is the one person who has never cared about Lisa's intelligence. He doesn't love her because she's smart. He loves her because she's his sister, and hearing that right before she walks into a world where everyone is smart is exactly what she needs. Mother and Child Reunion gives us a Lisa who breaks the pattern entirely. Instead of going to college, teenage Lisa refuses. She starts a school for people who never had access to education. It expands. It becomes a national movement. And Lisa eventually becomes president anyway, not through the traditional path of Yale and law school and political climbing, but through direct action, by just helping people. It's a different Lisa, a less predictable Lisa, and it's refreshing because it shows that her intelligence doesn't have to follow the expected trajectory to be world-changing. So what's the complete Lisa? Across all futures, she's someone who is given a gift that isolates her. Her intelligence is both her superpower and her prison. It opens every door except the one that leads to genuine connection. She achieves things that nobody in her family could ever dream of, and she does it alone. She ends up with Milhouse, or she ends up as president, or she ends up at Harvard. But in every version, there's a part of Lisa that's still the 8-year-old girl sitting in her room playing saxophone by herself, wondering if anyone out there really understands her. And the relationship that saves her consistently across every future isn't a romantic relationship at all. It's Bart, the brother she fights with, competes with, outperforms, and loves more than she'll ever admit. Bart gives back the scholarship. Bart paints the mural. Bart gives the pep talk. In every future where Lisa needs someone, really needs someone, it's Bart who shows up. That's the Simpsons magic right there. The underachiever and the overachiever, the screw-up and the genius, the brother and the sister. They save each other. They've always saved each other, and they always will. This is worth dwelling on because it's the single most important relationship in the entire Simpsons universe. More important than Homer and Marge's marriage, more important than Homer and Bart's fraught father-son dynamic, more important than any romantic relationship any character has ever had. Bart and Lisa are the emotional engine of the future episodes. In the present-day show, Bart and Lisa fight constantly. They bicker about everything. They compete for Homer's attention, for Marge's approval, for control of the TV remote. Bart mocks Lisa's intelligence. Lisa lectures Bart about his behavior. They drive each other crazy on a daily basis, and from the outside, it might look like they don't even like each other. But the future episodes reveal what's actually happening beneath all that noise. Bart and Lisa need each other, not in a sentimental Hallmark card kind of way, in a real, practical, essential kind of way. Lisa needs Bart because he's the only person who loves her without being impressed by her. Everyone else in Lisa's life is drawn to her intelligence, her achievements, her potential. Bart doesn't care about any of that. He loves her because she's his sister. Period. And that unconditional acceptance, the kind that has nothing to do with what you accomplish, is the one thing Lisa's intelligence can never earn on its own. And Bart needs Lisa because she's the only person who sees his potential without judging his failures. Homer sees Bart's failures and gets frustrated. Marge sees his failures and gets worried. Teachers see his failures and give up. Lisa sees his failures and also sees the person underneath them. She sees the artist, the fabricator, the kid who could be so much more if anyone gave him the chance. And in the futures where she tells him that, where she says, "You're actually good at this," Bart's life changes. They are, in the truest sense of the word, complementary. What one lacks, the other provides. Bart gives Lisa love without expectations. Lisa gives Bart belief without conditions. And across every future, across every contradiction, and every alternate timeline, that exchange is the thing that stays constant. I think the writers know this. I think they've known it for a long time. And I think the reason the future episodes keep returning to the Bart-Lisa relationship as their emotional climax is because it's the relationship that says the most about what the show really believes. The Simpsons believes that the people who know you best, the people who've been with you since the beginning, the people who've seen you at your worst and still choose to stay, are the people who matter most, not the people you impress, not the people you achieve for. The people who are there in the trenches with you, fighting and laughing and growing up in the same house, breathing the same air, living the same life. That's Bart and Lisa. That's always been Bart and Lisa. Now let's talk about the most mysterious Simpson of all, the one the writers have deliberately kept hidden for over 3 decades. The baby who grew up to be a rock star, a mother, and as of December 2025, a 5-year-old with Lindsay Lohan's voice. Let's talk about Maggie. Maggie Simpson is the most fascinating character in the entire Simpsons universe, and the reason is deceptively simple. We know almost nothing about her. In the present-day show, Maggie is a baby. She sucks on her pacifier. She falls down. She occasionally does something surprising, like shooting Mr. Burns in the season 6 finale or saving Homer from drowning. But she doesn't talk. She never has. Her first word, "Daddy," was spoken in a flashback episode voiced by Elizabeth Taylor, and since then, the show has kept Maggie almost entirely silent. She communicates through gestures, through actions, through that pacifier that never leaves her mouth. She's the quiet Simpson, the observer, the one who watches everything and says nothing. And in the future episodes, the writers have turned Maggie's silence into a running gag that lasted over 30 years. In Lisa's wedding, the earliest full future episode, the focus is so heavily on Lisa that Maggie barely appears. We get a glimpse of her as a teenager, but the episode doesn't give her much to do. She's there, she's growing up, but she's still essentially in the background, which is fitting for a character who has always lived in the background. Holidays of Future Past changes everything, or at least tries to. In this episode, set in 2041, adult Maggie is a famous rock star. She's successful, she's glamorous, she's about to have a baby. She's clearly the most well-adjusted Simpson by far. No failed marriages like Bart, no existential loneliness like Lisa, no endless cycle of death and cloning like Homer, no decades of thankless sacrifice like Marge. Maggie just figured it out. She found a career she loves, built a life that works, and is about to start a family of her own. But here's the gag. Every single time Maggie is about to speak in this episode, something interrupts her. A phone rings, a door opens, someone talks over her. The audience never hears adult Maggie's voice. Not once. And this wasn't accidental. The writers deliberately constructed every Maggie scene so that her voice would remain a mystery. After 20 years of future episodes, the most basic question about Maggie, what does she sound like when she grows up, was still unanswered. Days of Future continued this tradition, same gag, different execution. Maggie appears, Maggie is about to talk, something prevents it. By this point, the bit had become a challenge for the writers. How many creative ways can we prevent Maggie from speaking? And for the audience, it had become an expectation, a tradition. Maggie's future voice was the show's longest-running mystery. Now, why did the writers do this? Part of it is pure comedy. The gag of something always interrupting Maggie at the perfect moment is inherently funny, especially when you know it's coming and are watching for exactly how they'll pull it off. But there's a deeper reason too. Maggie's silence makes her a blank canvas. Every other Simpsons future is defined by their flaws. Homer's stubbornness, Marge's self-sacrifice, Bart's underachievement, Lisa's isolation. But Maggie doesn't have a defining flaw because Maggie doesn't have a defined personality. She's whatever you want her to be, a rock star, a mother, a genius, a rebel. The writers can project any future onto Maggie precisely because they've never boxed her in with specific character traits. And there's something else going on, something a little more poetic. Maggie is the Simpson who was raised in Springfield but never consciously processed it. She was a baby the whole time. She didn't grow up fighting with Homer like Bart did. She didn't grow up feeling intellectually superior to everyone like Lisa did. She didn't spend decades being underappreciated like Marge. She was just there, in the house, absorbing everything but never being damaged by it in the specific ways her siblings were. And maybe that's why she turned out the best. She got all the love without any of the trauma. She was held and carried and cared for without ever having to fight for attention or prove her worth. She never had to be the smart one or the troublemaker or the patient wife. She just got to be Maggie. There's a theory that Simpsons fans have kicked around for years, which is that Maggie's silence isn't just a gag, but a deliberate storytelling choice that says something about the relationship between observation and wisdom. Maggie watches. She sees everything. She sees Homer's flaws and Marge's suffering and Bart's struggle and Lisa's loneliness. And she processes all of it without ever having to respond to it. And when she finally does respond as an adult, she responds by building a life that avoids all of their mistakes. The rock star career isn't random. Music is expression without exposition. Maggie found a way to communicate with the world that doesn't require the kind of verbal intelligence Lisa has or the kind of blunt honesty Homer has. She sings, she performs, she connects with millions of people without ever having to sit down and explain herself. For a character defined by silence, becoming a musician is the most logical and most beautiful possible outcome. And then December 2025 changed the game entirely. Parahormonal activity, the most recent Simpsons future episode, did something fans never expected. It let Maggie talk. The setup is clever. In this near-future episode, Maggie is about 5 years old, and Marge tells her to rest her voice because she has laryngitis. If you've been watching future episodes for years, you recognize this immediately. It's the setup for the classic gag. Something will prevent Maggie from speaking. The tradition continues, the mystery survives. But then Maggie speaks anyway, and she's voiced by Lindsay Lohan, which is such a weird and perfect casting choice that you almost have to laugh. After 30 plus years of protecting Maggie's voice as this sacred mystery, the show broke its own rule in the most casual way possible. Maggie just talks, no fanfare, no dramatic reveal. She's just a 5-year-old girl who has things to say and says them. For longtime fans, this moment was genuinely shocking. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was so normal. After decades of build-up, Maggie's voice isn't mysterious or deep or prophetic. She just sounds like a kid. And there's something perfect about that. All this time, we were expecting something extraordinary, and what we got was ordinary. Maggie Simpson is just a person, a normal, healthy, well-adjusted person who figured out how to talk when she was ready and had nothing more complicated to say than what any 5-year-old would. For over 35 years, taking your time is something you can actually do. Let me say one more thing about Maggie before we move on, because I think her character arc, or rather her deliberate lack of a character arc, tells us something important about the show's philosophy. In a world of content where every character needs a backstory and a motivation and a 3-act structure and a satisfying resolution, Maggie is a radical statement. She's a character defined by what we don't know about her. She's a blank space in a show full of densely written, deeply analyzed, academically dissected characters. Everyone else in The Simpsons has been picked apart by fans and critics and scholars for decades. Homer's psychology has been analyzed in papers. Lisa's feminism has been debated in universities. Bart's behavior has been used as a case study in child development. But Maggie? Maggie just is. She exists without explanation, without motivation, without any of the analytical framework we usually apply to fictional characters. And I think that's why the future episodes keep her mysterious, because Maggie represents possibility. She represents the part of the future that you can't plan for, the part that doesn't fit into any spreadsheet or 5-year plan. She's the variable nobody accounted for. And in a family where everyone else's path has been analyzed and predicted and debated to death, Maggie's openness is itself a gift. There's a version of this in real life too. In every family, there's usually one person whose path surprises everyone. The quiet kid who turns out to be the most successful. The baby who grows up to be nothing like what anyone expected. The one who defied every prediction, not through rebellion or ambition, but just by being themselves in ways nobody saw coming. That's Maggie, the Simpson nobody saw coming. The one who might just turn out to be the most interesting one of all, if the show ever gives her the room to prove it. And based on para-hormonal activity, it seems like that room might finally be opening up. It's also worth noting that Maggie's silence served a practical purpose that goes beyond character development. In the present-day show, Maggie is voiced by a combination of sound effects and occasional guest appearances. Elizabeth Taylor voiced her first word. Jodie Foster voiced her in a short film. The character doesn't require a permanent voice actress the way Bart or Lisa or Homer does. By keeping Maggie silent in the future episodes too, the writers avoided having to cast a permanent adult voice for her, which would have locked the character into a specific identity. Lindsay Lohan voicing 5-year-old Maggie in para-hormonal activity might be a one-time thing, or it might signal a new direction. If the show continues making future episodes, and it almost certainly will, the question of who voices adult Maggie becomes increasingly unavoidable. The writers can only dodge it for so long, especially now that they've broken the silence rule once. The genie is out of the bottle. Maggie talks now. And whoever gives her a permanent voice will be defining a character that 35 years of silence has turned into one of the most intriguing blank slates in fiction. If you're still with me, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now would be a great time. We've covered the 5 main Simpsons and their futures, but we're nowhere near done. Because Springfield isn't just the Simpson family, it's a town full of supporting characters who have their own futures, their own fates, their own stories. And some of them are even sadder than what we've talked about so far. Let's get into everybody else. One of the things that makes The Simpsons special, and I mean genuinely special in a way that almost no other show has replicated, is the depth of its supporting cast. Springfield isn't just a backdrop, it's a living, breathing town with dozens of characters who feel like real people. Moe has a backstory. Barney has a backstory. Groundskeeper Willie has a backstory. Even Hans Moleman, who exists primarily to suffer, has been fleshed out across 800 episodes into someone you recognize and care about. So when the future episodes give us glimpses of what happens to these characters, it matters. It matters because Springfield isn't just where the Simpsons live, it's who they are. And seeing the town change or refuse to change tells you as much about the Simpsons world as anything that happens to the family directly. Let's start with the most important supporting character in the future episodes, and honestly, one of the most important characters in the entire show when it comes to Lisa's story. Milhouse Van Houten. Milhouse is Lisa's best friend, Bart's best friend, and he's been in love with Lisa since they were both in second grade. He's awkward, he's needy, he's allergic to almost everything, his parents are divorced, his self-esteem is somewhere between non-existent and negative, and he has been the butt of more jokes than probably any other character on the show. He is, in the most affectionate sense possible, a loser. And in the future, Milhouse ends up with Lisa, not in every version, but in enough of them that it feels like the writer's consensus. In future drama, Lisa ending up with Milhouse is presented as her worst-case scenario, the timeline she gets stuck in when she loses her scholarship. But in Holidays of Future Past, they're married, and it's presented as normal. Not ideal, maybe. Not the grand love story Lisa deserved, but normal, stable, functional. They have a daughter, they have a house, they have a life. In Days of Future, the Milhouse situation gets weirder because Milhouse becomes a zombie, like an actual zombie. And Lisa has to deal with the fact that her husband is now undead, which is both a horror gag and a metaphor for what happens to marriages that have lost their spark. Zombie Milhouse is still Milhouse. He still loves Lisa, he just can't stop eating brains. Barthood shows Lisa dating Milhouse as a teenager and then moving on to Nelson Muntz, which is its own interesting wrinkle. In that timeline, Lisa's romantic life is treated as a series of choices rather than a destination. She tries Milhouse, she tries Nelson, she might try other people. The episode doesn't lock her into any single outcome, which is refreshing compared to the other futures that seem to treat Milhouse as inevitable. But across the board, the Milhouse-Lisa relationship tells you something about what the writers think love actually looks like. It's not fireworks, it's not perfect compatibility, it's loyalty, it's showing up, it's being there when nobody else is. Milhouse has been there since day one, and even though he's not the partner Lisa would design if she could build one from scratch, he's the partner who stayed. And in a family defined by staying, by choosing each other over and over despite every reason not to, Milhouse fits. Now let's talk about Ned Flanders, good old Ned, Homer's neighbor, Homer's opposite, the most relentlessly cheerful man in Springfield. In the present-day show, Ned lost his first wife Maud in season 11 when she was knocked off a grandstand by t-shirt cannons at a car race, which is one of the most absurd death scenes in television history. Ned eventually remarried Edna Krabappel, who then passed away when voice actress Marcia Wallace died in 2013. So Ned has been widowed twice, and despite all of that, he remains unfailingly kind, unfailingly faithful, and unfailingly patient with Homer, which is its own kind of miracle. In the future episodes, Ned's story is quieter. In one version, he goes blind. In another, he's simply still Ned, still next door, still offering Homer unsolicited Bible verses and freshly baked brownies. But in Parahormonal Activity, the most recent future episode, Ned remarries for the third time, and Homer serves as his best man. This is a small detail, but it's significant. It means that in the future, Homer and Ned's friendship, which has always been more complicated than either of them admits, deepens into something real. Homer standing up for Ned at his wedding is Homer at his best, which is the kind of thing the future episodes let him be without the status quo yanking it back. Mr. Burns is still alive in every future, every single one. The man is over 100 years old in the present-day show, and in futures set 30 years from now, he's still running the power plant, still hoarding wealth, still being sustained by what the show implies is pure malice. There's a running joke that Burns has been kept alive by an elaborate system of medical interventions, replacement organs, and possibly deals with forces beyond human understanding. He's the one character whose future never changes because the writers view him as something beyond human. He's not a person, he's a condition. Springfield will always have a Burns. Principal Skinner gets one of the sadder supporting character futures. In Holidays of Future Past, he's still at Springfield Elementary, except now it's been converted into apartments, and he's the building manager. He rents one of the old classrooms to Bart. Think about that for a second. The principal who spent years trying to discipline Bart, trying to control him, trying to make him into a functioning member of society is now his landlord. Skinner's entire career, everything he worked for, has been reduced to managing a building full of people who used to be his students. And Bart, the student who caused him the most grief, is his tenant. There's a painful symmetry there that the show never dwells on, but definitely intends. Ralph Wiggum, Springfield's most lovable idiot, shows up in Bart to the Future as Bart's roommate. Adult Ralph is slightly more functional than child Ralph, which isn't saying much. He has brown hair instead of his childhood red, and he can hold a conversation, sort of. The joke is that Bart, the cool kid, ends up living with Ralph, the least cool kid, because both of them failed to become anything more than what they were as children. Nelson Muntz, the school bully, takes some interesting turns. In Barthood, he dates Lisa, which works surprisingly well because Nelson has always had a streak of sensitivity hidden beneath the bullying. In another future, he runs a seafood restaurant, which is such a random career choice that it feels like something the writers threw in specifically because it would be funny for a bully to end up shucking oysters. Krusty the Clown appears in various futures, usually still performing, usually still miserable, usually still being exactly who he's always been. In future drama, he's dating Marge, which is played for shock value, but also suggests that Krusty, with all his flaws, is at least more emotionally present than Homer. That's a low bar, but Krusty clears it. Mo Sislak, the bartender, is still behind the bar in most futures, still depressed, still alone, still pouring drinks for the same people. Mo's future is the saddest of the supporting cast because it doesn't change at all. At least Bart has ups and downs, at least Lisa has different paths. Mo is just Mo, forever, behind the same bar, in the same dive, with the same empty life. Barney Gumble is in roughly the same position, still at Mo's, still drinking. Some futures suggest he gets sober, but the show has done that storyline in the present and always reverts him. Barney's future is a loop, the same day over and over until the bar closes or he does. Apu Nahasapima Patilon, the Quick E-Mart owner, is harder to track in the future episodes because the show has pulled back significantly on the character following controversy about whether a white actor should be voicing an Indian character. Hank Azaria stepped away from the role in 2020. In the futures that were made before that, Apu is still running the store, still working those impossibly long hours, still raising his octuplets. His future is one of endurance. The Quickie Mart was there before the Simpsons arrived, and it'll be there after they're gone. What's striking about the supporting cast futures is how much sadder they are compared to the Simpson families. The Simpsons, for all their dysfunction, have each other. Bart has Lisa, Lisa has Bart, Homer has Marge. They argue and fight and disappoint each other, but at the end of every future episode, they come back together. The supporting characters don't have that. Mo goes home alone, Skinner manages his building alone, Barney drinks alone, Nelson fights alone. And I think the show is making a deliberate point here. The Simpson family survives the future because they have something the supporting characters don't, which is unconditional belonging. Homer belongs to Marge. Bart belongs to Lisa. They don't have to earn their place in the family. They don't have to perform or achieve or be useful. They just belong. And that belonging, that simple, unglamorous fact of being part of a unit that will always take you back, is the thing that separates The Simpsons from everyone else in Springfield. Moe doesn't have that. He's been alone the entire series. He's tried to find love, he's tried to find connection, and it's never worked out. His bar is his life, and his bar is a dingy hole where miserable people go to get slightly less miserable for a few hours. There's no family waiting for him at home. There's no one who will show up for him the way Bart shows up for Lisa. Moe's future is his present, extended indefinitely, and that's one of the saddest things the show has ever implied without saying it directly. Skinner doesn't have it either. He's got his mother, Agnes, who he lives with and who treats him terribly. But that's obligation, not belonging. Skinner's life has been defined by duty. Duty to his mother, duty to his school, duty to the military. He's never had the kind of voluntary, chosen family love that holds the Simpsons together. And in the future, when his school becomes an apartment building and his life's work becomes a property management gig, you see the cost of that absence. He built his life around an institution, and when the institution changed, he had nothing left. Even the characters who do find some version of happiness in the futures, like Nelson with his seafood restaurant or Ralph with his marginal increase in competence, find it in small, isolated ways. Their happiness doesn't ripple outward. It doesn't create warmth for the people around them. It's personal and contained, which is not nothing, but it's not family either. Springfield's supporting cast futures serve as a contrast to the Simpson families. They show what life looks like without the net, without the people who will always show up. And in doing so, they make the family story feel more precious, because the Simpsons don't appreciate what they have. Homer doesn't appreciate Marge. Bart doesn't appreciate Lisa, at least not out loud. They take each other for granted constantly. But the supporting characters' futures remind you of what life looks like without that taken for granted love, and it looks empty. It looks like Moe behind the bar. It looks like Skinner managing the building. It looks like Barney on the same stool, decade after decade, with nobody to go home to. Springfield's future is a town full of people who are exactly where you'd expect them to be, doing exactly what you'd expect them to do. And there's something comforting about that predictability, but there's something heartbreaking about it too, because for the supporting characters, there is no surprise ending. There is no Christmas miracle. There is no Bart painting a mural or Homer unfreezing Grandpa. There is just the same life, continuing unchanged until it doesn't. Let's shift gears now and talk about the town itself, because Springfield in the future is a wild place. The technology changes completely. Teleportation, holographic TVS, virtual reality internet, robots, cloning, the works. But the soul of the town stays exactly the same. And that contradiction tells you everything about what The Simpsons really thinks about progress. Springfield is a fictional town in an unnamed state, and that's by design. Matt Groening has said that Springfield was chosen because it's one of the most common city names in the United States. There are Springfields in Illinois, Ohio, Missouri, Massachusetts, Oregon, and about 30 other states. The idea was that Springfield could be anywhere. It could be your town. It could be the town next to your town. The Simpsons live everywhere and nowhere at the same time. In the present-day show, Springfield is a mid-sized American town with a nuclear power plant, a bad school system, a corrupt local government, a dive bar, a convenience store run by an overworked immigrant, and a church where the pastor's openly aware that nobody is really listening. It's got a tire fire that's been burning for decades. It's got a monorail that was built by a con man. It's got a gorge that Bart tried to jump on a skateboard and almost died. Springfield is America distilled into a single zip code, with all the dysfunction and charm and stubborn resilience that implies. So what happens to Springfield in the future? The technology goes wild. In Lisa's Wedding, set in 2010, Springfield has talking robots, video phones, and automated everything. The power plant is still running. The school is still underfunded. The town square still looks basically the same. The writers in 1995 imagined a future where the gadgets changed but the infrastructure didn't, which turned out to be remarkably accurate to how the real 2010 actually looked. Bart to the Future and Future Drama pushed the technology further. Flying cars, hoverboards, virtual reality classrooms. But again, the social structure stayed the same. Springfield is still run by Mayor Quimby or someone equally corrupt. The police are still led by Chief Wiggum, who is still incompetent. The school is still a disaster. The rich still control everything. The working class still gets squeezed. Holidays of Future Past, the big 2041 future episode goes the furthest. Springfield now has teleportation. Instead of driving somewhere, you step into a teleportation pod and you're there. The internet has evolved into something called the Ultranet, which is a full immersion virtual reality system where people can live entire lives inside digital worlds. Lisa's daughter Zia essentially lives in the Ultranet full time. Medical technology has advanced to the point where cloning is routine, which is why Homer can keep dying and being brought back. But here's the thing, Springfield Elementary is still Springfield Elementary. It's been converted into apartments, sure, but it's the same building. Moe's Tavern is still there. The Quickie Mart is still there. The nuclear power plant is presumably still poisoning the local water supply. The church is still holding services. The Krusty Burger is still serving food that technically qualifies as food. The town has teleportation, but it still hasn't fixed the roads. It has full immersion VR, but the school system is still terrible. It has cloning technology, but the hospital is still run by Dr. Nick, who still charges 5 cents and still has no idea what he's doing. And this is the joke, but it's also the thesis. The Simpsons' vision of the future is one where technology advances exponentially, but people don't advance at all. We'll get flying cars before we get competent government. We'll get teleportation before we get affordable housing. We'll be able to clone ourselves before we figure out how to have a conversation with our kids. Parahormonal activity, set just 5 years in the future, takes a more realistic approach. The technology isn't wildly different. Smart fridges exist. Cars are maybe a little more advanced. The phones are fancier, but Springfield still feels like Springfield. The Simpsons house still looks the same. The neighborhood hasn't changed. The town hasn't changed. And that plausibility is part of what makes this episode hit differently than the others, because it's not asking, what if Springfield had teleportation? It's asking, what if Springfield was exactly the same but 5 years older? And the answer is that 5 years from now, Springfield is still going to be Springfield. The tire fire is still burning. The monorail is still broken. Chief Wiggum is still eating donuts in his cruiser. There's a specific visual that shows up in several future episodes that I want to talk about, which is Springfield Elementary being converted into apartments. This happens in Holidays of Future Past, where the school has become the lofts at Springfield Elementary. The classrooms are now studio apartments. The gym is a common area. Principal Skinner is the building manager, and Bart, the kid who spent years terrorizing this building, is now living in it. This image works on multiple levels. On the surface, it's funny. Bart sleeping in the same room where he used to throw spitballs is a great visual gag. But it also says something about the relationship between childhood and adulthood in Springfield. The school that was supposed to prepare you for life has become the place where you live when life didn't work out. The institution that was supposed to launch you into the world has become the place you return to when the world launches you back. It's also a commentary on a very real phenomenon in American towns, which is that institutions that used to serve the public get repurposed for private use. Schools close. Churches become condos. Community centers become co-working spaces. The spaces that were built for everyone become spaces that are sold to the few. Springfield's future in this small detail is weirdly prescient about the real trajectory of American small towns. The town's social hierarchy doesn't change in any future. Mr. Burns is still at the top. The working class is still at the bottom. The middle is still getting squeezed. Homer is still struggling financially in futures set 30 years from now. Lisa's presidency is an exception, but even then, the town she came from hasn't improved just because one of its kids made it to the White House. And that's maybe the most honest prediction the show has ever made. Technology will change, culture will change, but the class system, the power structures, the way a small town works, with the same families running things and the same families working for them, that doesn't change. Not in 30 years, not in 50, not ever. Springfield's future is America's future, which is to say it's a place where the gadgets keep getting better and the problems keep staying the same. There's actually a really interesting tension in how the show depicts future Springfield that's worth unpacking. On one hand, the technology in these episodes is usually optimistic. Teleportation works, medical science can clone people, virtual reality is immersive and accessible. The gadgets are cool. The writers clearly enjoy imagining futuristic tech and finding funny ways to integrate it into the Simpsons world. But on the other hand, the social systems are uniformly pessimistic. Government is still corrupt, education is still underfunded, the class divide is still enormous, Mr. Burns still owns everything, the people at the bottom are still at the bottom. This isn't the shiny, egalitarian future of Star Trek, where technology has solved inequality. This is a future where technology has leapfrogged over the social problems that technology was supposed to solve. And when you think about it, that's exactly what's happened in the real world since 1989. We got the internet. We got smartphones, we got social media, we got AI and cryptocurrency and electric cars and streaming services. The technological advances since The Simpsons premiered have been staggering. And yet, income inequality has grown, housing has become less affordable, political polarization has intensified, education has become more expensive, healthcare is still a mess, the gadgets got better, the systems didn't. The Simpsons' future episodes figured this out decades ago. They looked at the trajectory of American progress and said, you're going to get amazing toys and terrible outcomes. You're going to be able to video call your grandmother from a watch on your wrist, but your grandmother is still going to be in a nursing home you can't afford to visit. You're going to have a teleportation pod in your house, but the house itself is going to be in a town where the river catches fire and the school can't afford new textbooks. That's bleak, but it's also honest, and it's part of what makes The Simpsons' vision of the future feel more real than most science fiction. Because most science fiction imagines either utopia or apocalypse. Either technology saves us or it destroys us. The Simpsons imagine something in between and much more likely, which is that technology changes everything and nothing at the same time. We'll live in the future, but it'll feel exactly like the present, just with fancier phones. One specific future detail that I find fascinating is the Ultranet, the full immersion virtual reality internet that appears in Holidays of Future Past. Lisa's daughter Zia essentially lives inside it. She has a digital life that's more real to her than her physical life. She connects with people online, has experiences online, builds relationships online. Her mother Lisa, a woman who grew up reading books and playing saxophone and engaging with the physical world, cannot understand this. The generation gap between Lisa and Zia is technological, but it's also experiential. They live in the same house, but different worlds. When this episode aired in 2011, social media was still relatively new. Facebook was 7 years old. Instagram had just launched. The idea of a teenager preferring their digital life to their real one was emerging, but hadn't fully arrived. 14 years later, it's arguably the defining challenge of modern parenting. Kids who live on their phones, teenagers who form their primary social connections through screens, parents who feel locked out of their children's inner lives because those lives exist in spaces the parents don't understand. Holidays of Future Past saw that coming. Not because the writers were prophets, but because they were parents. They were already seeing the early signs of a generation that would grow up more connected to technology than to the people sitting across from them at the dinner table. And they put that observation into their future episode, wrapped in a story about a mother and daughter who can't figure out how to talk to each other. The resolution of that storyline, by the way, is beautiful. Lisa discovers that Zia has been secretly saving clips of her mother's accomplishments in the Ultranet. Zia admires Lisa. She just doesn't know how to say it in the physical world, because the physical world isn't where she's learned to express herself. When Lisa sees the digital shrine her daughter has built, she realizes that connection doesn't have to look the way she expected it to look. Sometimes love shows up in formats you don't recognize. That's Springfield in the future, a town where the format keeps changing, but the feelings stay the same. Now let's dig into something that fans love to argue about, which is why none of these futures agree with each other. Because once you lay all 10 future episodes side by side, the contradictions are everywhere, and figuring out why they exist is its own kind of puzzle. But first, hit that subscribe button if you're still with me. We've covered the Simpson family, we've covered the supporting cast, we've covered the town. Now we're going to get into the meta stuff, the behind-the-scenes reasons why these futures are all so different, and what they're really trying to tell us. Alright, so here's where things get a little meta. If you've been paying attention tonight, you probably noticed something. The future episodes don't agree with each other, like at all. They contradict each other constantly, sometimes in minor ways and sometimes in ways that are completely irreconcilable. Let me give you some examples. In Itchy and Scratchy, the movie, Bart becomes the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. In Bart to the Future, he's a deadbeat musician living with Ralph Wiggum. In Holidays of Future Past, he's a divorced father of 2. In Barthood, he's a successful artist and fabricator. These can't all be true. You can't be Chief Justice and a deadbeat and a divorced dad and an artist at the same time. Something's gotta give. Lisa's futures are slightly more consistent. She usually achieves something big, but the details don't match. In one version, she marries Milhouse. In another, she dates Nelson. In Bart to the Future, she's president via the traditional political route. In Mother and Child Reunion, she's president via education activism. She goes to Harvard in one version, Yale in another, and refuses college entirely in a third. Homer and Marge's relationship is all over the map. In Bart to the Future, they're happily retired together. In future drama, they've separated. In Holidays of Future Past, they're still married. In Days of Future Future, Marge has essentially kicked Homer out of the house. Which is it? Are they together or apart? Maggie is a rock star in one future, a pregnant woman in another, and a talking 5-year-old in the most recent one. Her age doesn't match up across episodes. Her career doesn't match up. Even her voice doesn't match up, since she was silent in every future until 2025 broke the pattern. So what gives? Why can't the writers keep their own futures straight? The answer is the floating timeline. And it's something that makes The Simpsons fundamentally different from almost every other long-running show in television history. In a show like Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones or The Wire, time moves forward. Characters age. Events build on each other. Season 5 happens after Season 4, and the consequences of Season 4 carry into Season 5. There's a continuity, a chain of cause and effect, that makes the story feel coherent. The Simpsons doesn't work like that. Time doesn't move forward. It loops. Bart is always 10. The year resets, and because the year resets, the past has to reset too. Homer and Marge's origin story has been rewritten multiple times to keep them the right age. In early episodes, they were teenagers in the late 1970s. By the 2000s, their teen years had moved to the 1990s. By the 2010s, references started placing their youth even later. The specific cultural touchstones of their formative years keep shifting forward. Because if Homer's 39 in 1993 and he's still 39 in 2025, then the year he was born has to change. This is the floating timeline. The present stays the same, but the past keeps adjusting to accommodate it. And if the past can't stay put, the future has no chance. Let me give you a concrete example of how weird this gets. In the original episodes from the late 1980s and early 1990s, Homer and Marge are established as having been teenagers in the 1970s. They went to prom in the disco era. They watched Star Wars in theaters as kids. Their cultural touchstones were Watergate, Bell Bottoms, and Led Zeppelin. But by the time season 19 rolled around in 2007, the show did a flashback to Homer and Marge's high school years and set them in the early 1990s. Suddenly, Homer's teenage rebellion involved flannel shirts and grunge music instead of disco and Vietnam protests. Kurt Cobain replaced Jimi Hendrix. The cultural landscape of their youth had shifted forward by almost 2 decades because Homer still had to be around 39 years old. And if you're 39 in 2007, you weren't a teenager in 1974. By the 2020s, references to Homer and Marge's past started incorporating even later cultural touchstones. The math keeps sliding forward. Homer was always young once, but when he was young, keeps changing. Now think about what this means for the future episodes. When the writers of Lisa's Wedding in 1995 imagined the year 2010, they were extrapolating from a version of The Simpsons where Homer was born around 1956 and Lisa was born around 1984. Their future was built on that foundation. But when the writers of Bart Hood in 2015 imagined Bart growing up, they were working from a completely different set of birth years because the floating timeline had shifted everything forward by decades. The future episodes aren't contradicting each other because the writers are being careless. They're contradicting each other because the present they're extrapolating from keeps changing. Each future is internally consistent with its own version of the present. It's just that the present is a moving target. This is actually kind of beautiful if you think about it, because it means the Simpsons don't have one future. They have infinite futures. Every time the floating timeline shifts forward, every time Homer's teenage years get relocated to a new decade, a whole new set of possible futures opens up. The Simpsons of 1995 have a different future than the Simpsons of 2005, who have a different future than the Simpsons of 2015, who have a different future than the Simpsons of 2025. Of Lisa's Wedding, imagine the future in the world they exist in keeps reinventing itself, and the futures reinvent themselves along with it. When the writers of Lisa's Wedding imagined the future in 1995, they were working from a specific set of assumptions. They assumed Lisa was born around 1984. They imagined 2010. They designed a whole world around that math. But 20 years later, when a different set of writers made Bart Hood, those assumptions were completely different. Lisa's birth year had shifted. The future they were imagining was based on a different present. The math didn't work anymore, so the future changed. Every future episode is essentially a snapshot of what the writers were thinking at the time they made it. Lisa's Wedding in 1995 reflects mid-90s optimism and anxieties. Bart to the Future in 2000 reflects millennial concerns about political dysfunction. Holidays of Future Past in 2011 reflects post-recession fears about family fragmentation. Parahormonal Activity in 2025 reflects current conversations about aging, hormonal health, and what happens when the kids grow up. The futures don't contradict each other because the writers are sloppy. They contradict each other because they're honest. Each one is a genuine attempt to imagine what would happen to these characters in a specific cultural moment. And since cultural moments keep changing, the futures keep changing too. Showrunner Al Jean has talked about this openly. He said that Holidays of Future Past was written as a potential series finale, a real goodbye to these characters, because the cast's contract negotiations were uncertain. If the show had ended in 2011, that would have been the definitive future. Bart is a divorced dad. Lisa married Milhouse. Homer frees his grandpa. That's the ending, roll credits. But the show didn't end, it kept going. And when it kept going, the writers were free to imagine new futures. And those new futures were influenced by new concerns, new ideas, new cultural shifts. Barthood couldn't have existed without the film Boyhood, which came out in 2014. Parahormonal activity couldn't have existed without the broader cultural conversation about menopause and hormonal health that's been growing in the 2000s. Each future is a product of its time, which means no future is permanent. And here's the thing I find most interesting about all of this. The fact that the futures contradict each other makes them more meaningful, not less, because in real life, the future isn't fixed either. Your future at 25 is different from your future at 45. The person you thought you'd become at 18 is probably not the person you actually became. Life contradicts itself constantly. Plans change, paths diverge. The future you were promised isn't the future you got. The Simpsons' contradictory futures feel honest because that's how futures actually work. Bart might be a chief justice or a deadbeat or an artist. Lisa might marry Milhouse or date Nelson or be president. Homer and Marge might stay together or fall apart. The answer depends on when you ask the question, what's happening in the world at that moment and which choices get made along the way. None of these futures are true because there's no such thing as a true future. There are only possibilities, and The Simpsons, whether by accident or design, has given us a richer collection of possible futures than any show in history. Here's another way to think about the contradictions that I find helpful. Each future episode is essentially a different writer's answer to the same question. Lisa's Wedding was written by Greg Daniels, who went on to create The Office. His answer to what happens to Lisa is that she finds love and loses it, because her family is more important than any individual relationship. Bart to the Future was written by Dan Graney. His answer to what happens to Bart is that without intervention, Bart fails completely because the system never gave him the tools to succeed. Holidays of Future Past was written by J. Stewart Burns. His answer to what happens to everyone is that they fragment and then reassemble because Christmas has a gravitational pull that family members can't resist. Barthood was written by Dan Weber. His answer to what happens to Bart, gestating, is completely different from Graney's because Weber sees Bart's story as one of quiet resilience rather than spectacular failure. Each writer brought their own experiences, their own fears, their own hopes to the characters. And because The Simpsons writing staff has turned over multiple times across 37 seasons, the people imagining these futures are literally different people with different perspectives. A writer in 1995 has different life experiences than a writer in 2015. They see Bart differently, they see Lisa differently, they project different anxieties onto the future. And that's actually one of the most realistic things about The Simpsons' approach to the future. Because in real life, your future looks different depending on who's imagining it. Your mother imagines one future for you. Your teacher imagines another. Your boss imagines a third. You imagine a fourth. They're all based on who you are right now, but they all reach different conclusions because the person doing the imagining brings their own lens to it. Bart Simpson's future is different in every episode because the person imagining Bart's future is a different person in every episode. And all of those imaginings are valid, just like all of the imagined futures the people in your life have for you are valid. They're not predictions, they're projections. And projections tell you as much about the projector as they do about the subject. There's one specific contradiction I want to highlight because I think it's the most revealing. In Bart to the Future, Bart at 40 is a complete failure, and the episode treats this as comedy. He's pathetic, he's laughable, he's a cautionary tale. But in Holidays of Future Past, Bart at 40 is also a failure, a divorced dad in the show. 40 is also a failure, a divorced dad in a converted classroom, and the episode treats this as tragedy. Same outcome, Completely different emotional framing. The facts are almost identical, but the feeling is night and day. Why? Because the writers in 2000 saw Bart's failure as funny. They weren't invested in his suffering. They were using him as a punchline. But the writers in 2011, working from a different emotional place, 11 years deeper into the show's run, with 11 more years of attachment to this character, saw the same failure as heartbreaking. They cared too much about Bart by then to laugh at him. They wanted him to hurt because they wanted him to heal. That shift from comedy to tragedy, from detachment to investment, is the story of The Simpsons itself. The longer the show runs, the more the writers care about these characters. The more they care, the more the future episodes feel like genuine concern rather than hypothetical exercises. Holidays of Future Past wasn't written by people having fun imagining worst-case scenarios. It was written by people who were genuinely worried about whether their characters would be okay. But even though the details contradict each other, there are emotional truths that stay consistent across every single future episode. And those truths are what really matter. Let's talk about those next. So we've established that the futures contradict each other. Bart is a chief justice and a deadbeat and an artist. Lisa is president and a businesswoman and a college dropout who becomes president anyway. Homer dies and gets cloned and also doesn't die and lives peacefully into old age. None of it lines up. But here's what's remarkable. Even though the specific facts change in every episode, the emotional truths stay exactly the same. Across 33 years of future episodes, from 1992 to 2025, the writers keep arriving at the same conclusions about who these people really are. And those conclusions are, I think, the real reason these episodes resonate so deeply. Let me walk you through them. The first emotional truth is that Bart will always struggle, but his heart will save him. We've covered this in detail, but it bears repeating because it's so consistent. In every future, Bart falls short of conventional success. He doesn't get the grades, he doesn't get the career, he doesn't get the marriage to work. But in every future, there's a moment where Bart does something genuinely selfless. He gives Lisa the scholarship. He reconnects with his sons. He paints the mural. He gives the pep talk. Bart's intelligence may fail him, but his emotional capacity never does. The writers seem to believe that Bart's defining quality isn't his rebelliousness or his humor or his mischief. It's his love. And that love doesn't express itself in obvious ways. It doesn't come in the form of good grades or career success or financial stability. But it's there. It's always there. When it matters, when someone he loves really needs him, Bart shows up every time, in every future, without exception. And that's a profound statement about what success actually means. Because if you measure Bart's life by traditional metrics, he's a failure in almost every version of the future. But if you measure it by the moments that actually matter, by whether he was there when his sister needed him, or whether he fought to reconnect with his sons, Bart's life is full. The second emotional truth is that Lisa will always achieve, but she'll always be lonely. This one hurts, because Lisa is the character the audience identifies with most when it comes to ambition and intelligence. She's the kid who wants to change the world. She's the one who does everything right. And the futures consistently show that doing everything right doesn't protect you from being alone. Lisa becomes president, but she inherits a mess. Lisa goes to Harvard, but she's terrified of not being special. Lisa marries Milhouse, but she can't connect with her own daughter. Lisa's intelligence opens every door except the one that leads to genuine, reciprocal understanding. She's surrounded by people who admire her but don't really know her. And the loneliness isn't dramatic. It's quiet. It's subtle. It's Lisa sitting in a room full of people, knowing she's the smartest one there and feeling worse about it, not better. It's Lisa achieving her dreams and discovering that achievement and fulfillment are two different things. The third truth is that Homer will never change. We've covered this extensively, but the consistency is worth noting. In every future, Homer is Homer. His stubbornness is permanent. His love is permanent. His flaws are permanent. The writers never give Homer a transformation arc in the future episodes, and I think that's because they believe transformation arcs would be dishonest for this character. Homer isn't going to wake up one day and become a better person. That's not who he is. He is a fixed point for better and for worse, and the future episodes honor that by letting him be exactly who he's always been. The fourth truth is that Marge will hold it together until she can't. Marge's breaking points in the future episodes are rare, but when they happen, they're devastating. She leaves Homer in future drama. She kicks his USB out of the house in Days of Future. These moments carry weight precisely because they're so unusual. Marge is the most patient character in the show, the most forgiving, the most resilient. When she breaks, it means something has gone genuinely, irreversibly wrong. And the fact that the show only lets Marge break in the future episodes says something about the limitations of the present-day show. In regular Simpsons episodes, Marge's breaking points always reset. She considers leaving, she stays, she gets angry, she forgives. The status quo demands it. But in the future, where the status quo doesn't apply, Marge's decades of sacrifice finally add up to something real. The bill comes due, and watching Marge, of all people, reach the point where she can't give any more is perhaps the most emotionally impactful thing the future episodes ever do. The fifth truth is that Maggie is the wild card, and the writers are comfortable leaving it that way. Maggie's future is deliberately vague. She's a rock star in one version, a mother in another, a talking 5-year-old in the most recent. The writers have resisted the temptation to lock Maggie into a specific destiny, and I think that resistance is itself a statement. Not everyone's future can be predicted. Not everyone's story has a clear trajectory. Some people just figure it out as they go, and that's okay. And the sixth truth, the one that ties everything together, is that the Simpsons will always choose each other. This is the big one. This is the thesis that runs through every future episode from start to finish. Lisa calls off her wedding to stay with her family. Bart gives up the scholarship so Lisa can have a future. Homer unfreezes Grandpa and breaks the cycle of resentment. Bart reconnects with his sons on Christmas morning. Lisa discovers her daughter secretly admires her. Marge holds the family together for one more holiday, even when they fight, even when they separate, even when Homer literally dies and comes back as a USB drive. The family returns to each other, always, in a show that's famous for its cynicism, for its satire, for its willingness to mock every institution and every belief system. The future episodes are the one place where The Simpsons is completely sincere. No irony, no distance, no jokes undercutting the emotion. The future episodes believe in this family with their whole heart. And I think that's why people come back to these episodes specifically. Because in a world that feels increasingly uncertain, where the future feels increasingly difficult to imagine, there's something deeply comforting about a show that says, it's going to be messy, it's going to be hard. People are going to fail and disappoint each other, but the people who love you are going to keep showing up. That's the thing that doesn't change. That's the thing that stays. There's one more emotional truth I want to add to that list, and it's not about a specific character. It's about the show itself. The seventh truth, the one nobody talks about, is that the act of imagining the future is itself a form of love. Think about what the writers are doing when they make a future episode. They're taking characters they've been writing for years, sometimes decades, and they're asking what happens to them next. They're thinking about these fictional people the way you think about someone you care about. Where will they be in 10 years? Will they be happy? Will they find what they're looking for? Will they be okay? You don't ask those questions about characters you don't love. You don't spend weeks in a writer's room debating whether Bart would be a chief justice or a deadbeat unless you genuinely care about the answer. You don't write an episode like Barthood, which traces a character's entire life from childhood to adulthood with real emotional specificity, unless that character means something to you. The Simpsons' future episodes are love letters. They're the writers saying, we've spent so many years with these people that we can't help imagining what happens to them beyond the boundaries of our show. We know the present resets every week. We know these characters will never actually grow up, but we care about them enough to imagine it anyway. And there's something deeply human about that, because that's what we all do with the people we love. We imagine their futures, we worry about them, we hope for them. We picture them 10 or 20 years from now, and we think, I hope they're okay. I hope they found what they were looking for. I hope they're happy. The Simpsons' future episodes are the writers hoping their characters are happy. And that hope, more than any specific plot point or prediction or character arc, is the real emotional core of every future the show has ever imagined. Let's bring the energy back up a little and talk about something lighter, something people love to bring up whenever The Simpsons is mentioned. The predictions. Because the future episodes didn't just imagine what would happen to the Simpson family. They also, whether intentionally or not, predicted some things that actually happened in the real world. And some of those predictions are genuinely eerie. If you spent any time on the internet in the last 10 years, you've seen the memes. The Simpsons predicted it. There's a whole genre of social media content dedicated to the idea that The Simpsons has somehow predicted the future over and over again, with an accuracy that borders on the supernatural. Now, a lot of those memes are garbage. They cherry-pick frames out of context, misidentify episodes, exaggerate similarities, and sometimes just flat-out lie. Someone will post a screenshot of Homer next to a vaguely similar real-world event and caption it, "The Simpsons predicted this." And it'll get 1 million likes because people love the idea that a cartoon from the 90s is secretly a prophecy. But, and this is a big but, some of the predictions from the future episodes are real, they're documented, they're not taken out of context, and a few of them are genuinely difficult to explain. The big one, the one everyone knows, is the Trump prediction. In Bart to the Future, which aired on March 19, 2000, Lisa Simpson becomes president and explicitly says she's inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. The episode shows Lisa dealing with the economic fallout of a Trump presidency. This was 16 years before Donald Trump actually became president in 2016. Now, the writers have discussed this. Al Jean, the showrunner, has said that Trump was chosen because he was already a public figure who had flirted with running for president. In 1999, Trump had briefly joined the Reform Party and made noises about a presidential bid. So the writers took that kernel of real-world news and extrapolated it into a joke. The joke was that someone like Trump becoming president would be absurd, a catastrophe played for laughs. Except it actually happened. And when it did, that episode became one of the most cited pieces of Simpsons trivia in history. The clip of Lisa mentioning President Trump went viral in 2016 and has been shared millions of times since. It's the prediction that launched 1,000 meme accounts. What makes the Trump prediction so interesting isn't just that it happened, but the specifics of how the episode framed it. Lisa doesn't just inherit a country that had Trump as president. She inherits a budget crisis, a financial disaster. The episode specifically portrayed Trump's presidency as economically catastrophic, which is a remarkable level of detail for what was supposed to be a throwaway joke. The writers weren't just guessing that Trump could become president. They were making a specific satirical argument about what a Trump presidency would look like. And whether or not you agree with that argument politically, the fact that it was made at all in a cartoon in the year 2000 is worth thinking about. Dan Graney, who wrote the episode, has said in interviews that they chose Trump because he represented a certain strain of American celebrity that the writers found both absurd and plausible. Trump was already famous. He was already associated with wealth and branding and self-promotion. The logical extension of celebrity culture merging with political culture was someone like Trump running the country. The writers didn't need to be prophets, they just needed to follow the thread to its logical conclusion. And that's really the key to understanding all of the Simpsons predictions. They're not guesses, they're extrapolations. The The writers look at where the culture is heading and imagine what happens if that trajectory continues uninterrupted. Sometimes the trajectory changes and the prediction doesn't come true. But sometimes the trajectory holds, and when it does, The Simpsons looks like it predicted the future. But was it really a prediction? The writers didn't have a crystal ball. They took a real person who was already talking about running for president and imagined the worst-case scenario. The fact that the worst-case scenario actually happened says more about American politics than it does about The Simpsons' psychic abilities. There are other future episode predictions that are less famous but equally interesting. In Lisa's Wedding, set in the fictional 2010, the show depicted video calling, smartwatches, and autocorrect as common technologies. In 1995, these things either didn't exist or were in their earliest stages. Video phones have been a science fiction concept for decades, but the casual, everyday use of video calling that the episode depicted, where Lisa just calls her family and sees their faces on a screen like it's no big deal, that's basically FaceTime, which didn't launch until 2010, the same year the episode was set. Smartwatches in the same episode were played as futuristic gadgets. Apple Watch didn't launch until 2015. Autocorrect, which the episode mocks as a frustrating technology that changes words incorrectly, is now one of the most universally relatable annoyances of daily life. When You Dish Upon a Star, a season 10 episode from 1998, showed a sign reading 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. This was played as an absurd corporate gag. In March 2019, Disney completed its acquisition of 21st Century Fox's entertainment assets for $71 billion. The Simpsons is now literally a Disney property. The joke became reality. The future episodes also depicted things like holographic projection, AI assistance in the home, virtual reality immersion, drone delivery, and social media addiction. Years or even decades before these things became part of everyday life. Were these predictions? Or were they just the logical extension of existing technological trends imagined by writers who were paying close attention to where the world was heading? Honestly, it's probably both. The Simpsons has been on the air for so long, has covered so many topics, and has imagined so many scenarios that pure statistics dictate some of its jokes would eventually line up with reality. If you write 800 episodes of television that satirize every aspect of American culture, some of your satire is going to end up being prophetic. It's the law of large numbers applied to comedy. But I also think there's something deeper going on. The Simpsons writers, particularly during the show's golden age but continuing into the present, have always had a remarkably sharp understanding of American culture. They understand how power works. They understand how corporations work. They understand how politics works. They understand the patterns of American life, the cycles of excess and collapse, the predictable ways that technology gets adopted and abused, the reliable stupidity of institutions, and the reliable resilience of ordinary people. When you understand a system deeply enough, you can predict where it's going. Not because you're psychic, but because you can see the trajectory. The Simpsons predicted Trump not because the writers had a time machine, but because they understood American politics well enough to see that a celebrity demagogue running the country wasn't just possible, but probable. They predicted the Disney-Fox merger not because they knew the specific deal was coming, but because they understood the logic of corporate consolidation. The Simpsons doesn't predict the future. It understands the present so well that the future becomes obvious. And that's a much more impressive achievement than prophecy, because prophecy implies luck or magic. Understanding implies something much harder. It implies that you've looked at the world clearly enough, honestly enough, without flinching, and seen what's actually happening beneath the surface noise. The Simpsons has been doing that for 35 years. It looked at American healthcare and saw a broken system decades before healthcare crisis became a nightly news phrase. It looked at corporate consolidation and saw Disney buying everything before Disney actually bought everything. It looked at American politics and saw a reality TV star in the White House before anyone else took the possibility seriously. The show doesn't predict the future, it just pays attention to the present. And when you pay attention for 800 episodes, the future starts to feel less like a mystery and more like an inevitability. There's one more aspect of the prediction phenomenon worth discussing, which is what it says about the show's longevity. The reason The Simpsons predicts things is partly because it's been on the air so long that the future has had time to catch up with it. A show that runs for 5 seasons can make jokes about the future, but it won't be around long enough for those jokes to come true. The Simpsons has been running for 37 seasons. It's been making jokes about the future since 1989. That's over 3.5 decades of material, thousands of jokes about politics, technology, culture, and society. The sheer volume of predictions, real and imagined, is a testament to the show's impossible durability. When Lisa's Wedding imagined video calling in 1995, the writers weren't expecting to still be making the show when FaceTime launched in 2010. When Bart to the Future mentioned President Trump in 2000, nobody thought the show would still be airing when Trump actually took office in 2017. The predictions became real because the show refused to go away. It just kept running, kept making episodes, kept being part of the culture, until the culture eventually caught up with its jokes. That's not prediction, that's persistence. And persistence might be the most Simpsons quality of all. Speaking of the future, let's talk about the show's own future. Because The Simpsons has been renewed through season 40, the cast is aging, the landscape of television has changed completely since 1989, and the question of when and how this show will end has never been more relevant. Let's get into it. And hey, if you made it this far, you're a champion. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're in the home stretch now, and we're going to close this thing out with something that I think is actually pretty emotional. The Simpsons was renewed through season 40 on April 2nd, 2025. That announcement came as part of what was described as a mega deal with Disney, the show's parent company since the Fox acquisition. Seasons 37 through 40 are planned at 15 Fox broadcast episodes, plus 2 Disney Plus exclusive specials per season, which means the show will produce at least 68 more episodes, bringing the total well past 850. Season 40 will take the show into the late 2000s. When it airs, The Simpsons will have been running for nearly 40 years. It will have been on the air longer than some of its viewers have been alive. Longer than some of its viewers' parents have been alive. It will have outlasted entire eras of television, from the network dominance of the 90s to the cable golden age of the 2000s, to the streaming wars of the 2010s and 2020s. The show has seen every trend come and go and just kept making episodes. But the question everyone asks, the one that hangs over the show like the tire fire hangs over Springfield, is when will it end? The honest answer is that nobody knows. The show has never been canceled. It has never been on the verge of cancellation in any confirmed public way. There was a close call in 2011 when Fox threatened to cancel the series unless the cast took a significant pay cut, and the voice actors eventually agreed to reduce their salaries from roughly $400,000 per episode to around $300,000, with back-end profit participation to compensate. The show survived. It has survived everything. But the cast is aging. Dan Castellaneta, who voices Homer, Grandpa, Krusty, Barney, Mayor Quimby, Groundskeeper Willie, and dozens of other characters, has been doing this since the late 1980s. Julie Kavner, who voices Marge, Patty, Selma, and their mother, has been doing this equally long and maintains one of the most reclusive public profiles of any major television actor. Nancy Cartwright, who voices Bart, Nelson, Ralph, and others, has been doing this since she was in her 30s, and she's now in her 60s. Yeardley Smith, who voices Lisa, is the only main cast member who primarily voices just one character, and she's been at it for the same 35 plus years. Hank Azaria, who voices Moe, Chief Wiggum, Comic Book Guy, Professor Frink, and many others, stepped back from voicing Apu in 2020. and the character has been largely phased out. Harry Shearer, who voices Mr. Burns, Smithers, Ned Flanders, Principal Skinner, Kent Brockman, Reverend Lovejoy, and more, briefly threatened to leave the show in 2015 over contract disputes before reaching a new deal. And then there are the losses. Phil Hartman, who voiced Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz, was murdered by his wife in May 1998. Both characters were immediately retired and have never been recast. Voiced Edna Krabappel passed away in 2021. Voiced Edna Krabappel passed away in October 2013. The character was retired with an on-screen tribute and has never been replaced. Mrs. Krabappel's desk sits empty in the Springfield Elementary scenes that followed. A small, respectful acknowledgement that some things can't be replaced. Rassi Taylor, who voiced Martin Prince, Sherry and Terry, and other characters, passed away in July 2019. Her roles were taken over by Gray Delisle, and Pamela Hayden, who voiced Milhouse, Rod Flanders, and Jimbo Jones for 35 years, retired in November 2024. Her final episode aired on November 24, 2024, a Treehouse of Horror special. The roles have been recast, with Kelly MacLeod taking over Milhouse starting in season 37. Each of these departures changes the show. Not always in obvious ways, but in the texture of the thing. The voice behind a character isn't just a voice, it's a presence. It's the accumulated memory of every line reading, every inflection, every emotional beat that actor brought to the role over decades. When Pamela Hayden retired, Milhouse didn't stop existing, but the Milhouse we'd known for 35 years did. There's something that happens with long-running shows that doesn't get talked about enough, which is that the actors become the characters in a way that transcends performance. Dan Castellaneta isn't just voicing Homer Simpson. After 35 years, he is Homer Simpson. The rhythm of his speech, the timing of his reactions, the specific way he says dough or donuts or why you little, these aren't acting choices anymore. They're reflexes, they're muscle memory. They're the result of a human being spending more of his adult life as Homer Simpson than as anyone else. And when that human being can no longer do it, whether through retirement or age or death, the character will never be the same. You can hire another actor, you can match the voice, you can study the recordings and learn the inflections, but you can't replicate 35 years of an actor growing into a character until they become indistinguishable from each other. That's irreplaceable. The Simpsons has already weathered this with Phil Hartman's characters, which were retired rather than recast. Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz haven't appeared since 1998, and the show has never tried to replace them because the characters were Phil Hartman. Without him, they're just drawings. The same will eventually be true of every main character. When Julie Kavner stops being Marge, Marge will never sound the same. When Dan Castellaneta stops being Homer, Homer will never feel the same. The show might continue in some form, but the thing that made it the thing will be gone. This is the ticking clock that the renewal through season 40 doesn't address. You can renew a show, you can renew a contract, you can negotiate a deal with Disney that keeps the brand alive for another decade, but you can't renew a human being. The cast is aging and the math is simple. At some point, probably within the next 10 to 15 years, The Simpsons will lose a principal voice actor to retirement or death, and the show will have to decide whether it can continue without them. Some fans argue that the show should end while the original cast is still intact. Go out on your own terms. Write a real finale. Give these characters the ending they deserve. Let Holidays of Future Past or something like it be the last word. Don't let the show decline into a shell of itself, staffed by replacement voices and running on inertia. Other fans argue that The Simpsons is bigger than any single actor, that the characters have taken on a life of their own, that the brand is too valuable to retire, that Disney would be insane to let it end. They point to the successful recasting of Milhouse and other characters as proof that the show can survive transitions. They see The Simpsons not as a show, but as an institution, like Saturday Night Live, something that evolves and changes cast members while keeping its identity. Both perspectives have merit, and the future episodes, interestingly enough, don't settle the debate. They just demonstrate that the writers have thought about endings. They've practiced saying goodbye. They've imagined what after looks like. And the fact that they've done this not once, but 10 times over 33 years suggests a team that's been preparing for the end, consciously or not, for a very long time. The show has also evolved in other ways. It transitioned from hand-drawn cell animation to digital animation. It moved from the traditional 4:3 aspect ratio to widescreen HD, starting in season 20. It navigated the massive cultural shift from being a Fox show to being a Disney property. It adjusted to the Disney Plus streaming model, which launched a 24/7 Simpsons stream in March 2025 that cycles through the first 35 seasons, almost 800 episodes, on a continuous loop. The Simpsons has become less of a television show and more of a permanent feature of the entertainment landscape. Its infrastructure, its wallpaper, it's always on somewhere in some form, and it has been for so long that an entire generation has never known a world without it. The show's recent collaborations underscore this permanence. In 2025, The Simpsons collaborated with Fortnite, introducing Simpsons characters and Springfield locations into one of the most popular video games in the world. This means that kids who have never sat down and watched a Simpsons episode on television are running around as Homer Simpson in a battle royale game. The characters have escaped the show entirely. They exist in gaming, in theme parks, in merchandise, in memes, in the background of everyday life. You can wear a Bart Simpson shirt without knowing what show he's from. You can use a Homer Simpson meme without having seen the episode it came from. The Simpsons has achieved a kind of cultural escape velocity where the characters are bigger than the show that created them. This is both impressive and a little melancholy, because the show itself, the actual episodes that air on Sunday nights, are watched by far fewer people than they were in the 1990s. Season 35 averaged about 2 million viewers per episode compared to over 13 million in the early seasons. The cultural footprint grows while the audience shrinks. More people know who Homer Simpson is than ever before, but fewer people are watching his new adventures. The brand is massive, the show is modest, and somewhere in that gap between brand and show, the future episodes exist as these quiet, deeply felt meditations on what it all means. But the future episodes suggest that the writers have thought deeply about how to say goodbye. Holidays of Future Past was designed as a potential finale. It gave every character a resolution. It closed emotional loops that had been open for decades. The Homer grandpa cycle of resentment, Bart's search for connection with his children, Lisa's struggle to connect with her own family. If the show had ended there, it would have been a satisfying ending. Barthood also feels like a farewell. The way it traces Bart's entire life, from childhood to adulthood, from failure to quiet success, has the shape of a eulogy. It's saying goodbye to the character while he's still here, acknowledging who he is and who he could be, and making peace with the gap between the two. Even Parahormonal Activity, the most recent Future episode, has a hint of farewell in it. By making the time jump so small, just 5 years, the episode feels less like science fiction and more like acceptance. These characters are getting older. The show is getting older. And instead of imagining some wild, far future where everything has changed, the writers are saying, what if we just let them be a little older? What if we just let time pass? There's a bittersweetness to that. The show that never lets its characters age is starting to imagine what it would look like if it did. And the fact that those imaginings keep getting closer to the present, less fantastical, more grounded, suggests that the writers are slowly, gently, beginning to reckon with the idea that even The Simpsons can't run forever. When the show does end, whether that's after season 40 or season 50, or whenever the last voice actor decides to hang it up, the The future episodes will be there. A collection of goodbyes the writers have been practicing for 33 years. Each one a different version of the same message. These people mattered. This family mattered. This weird, yellow, dysfunctional, deeply American family mattered. And they did. They really did. Which brings us to the last thing I want to talk about tonight. The big picture. The legacy. Why The Simpsons matters, why the future episodes matter, and why you just spent the last 3 hours listening to someone talk about a cartoon at 2 in the morning. Let's finish this the way The Simpsons always finish, together. The Simpsons has been called the greatest television series of the 20th century. Time magazine said that. Not greatest animated series. Greatest television series, period. It's been called the most important cultural artifact of the last 35 years. It's been studied in universities, analyzed in academic papers, and referenced in more other TV shows, movies, songs, and internet memes than anyone has ever bothered to count. And those accolades are deserved. The Simpsons changed television. Before The Simpsons, animated shows were for kids. Full stop. The Flintstones had been the last major primetime animated hit, and that was in the 1960s. The idea that a cartoon could be smart, that it could be satirical, that it could have emotional depth, that adults could watch it without feeling like they were watching children's programming, was essentially unthinkable. The Simpsons made it thinkable, and in doing so, it opened the door for everything that followed. South Park exists because The Simpsons proved that animation could be subversive. Family Guy exists because The Simpsons proved that animation could be profitable in prime time. King of the Hill exists because The Simpsons proved that animation could be quiet and observational. Rick and Morty exists because The Simpsons proved that animation could be philosophically ambitious. BoJack Horseman exists because The Simpsons proved that animation could make you cry. And the influence goes beyond other animated shows. The Simpsons' approach to storytelling, its willingness to be smart without being exclusive, funny without being shallow, emotional without being sentimental, influenced a generation of live-action comedies too. Arrested Development borrows the show's layered joke structure. Community borrows its love of meta-commentary and pop culture parody. Brooklyn Nine-Nine borrows its ensemble approach to workplace comedy. Even prestige dramas owe something to The Simpsons because the show proved that audiences are smarter than networks give them credit for. That you can be complex and popular at the same time. The Simpsons writers' room was the training ground for an astonishing number of people who went on to shape American comedy. Conan O'Brien was a writer on the show before becoming one of the most famous talk show hosts in history. Greg Daniels went from The Simpsons to creating The Office and Parks and Recreation. Mike Scully went from writing some of the show's best episodes to running other major animated series. Jeff Martin, Al Jean, Mike Rice, George Meyer, John Swartzwelder. The list of Simpsons alumni who went on to define comedy elsewhere is basically a hall of fame. The show's cultural footprint is almost impossible to overstate. Dough is in the Oxford English Dictionary. Eat my shorts was a playground catchphrase for an entire generation. Don't have a cow, man, entered the lexicon. Cromulent and embiggen, words the show literally invented, have been adopted by real people in real conversations. The steamed hams sketch from 1996 became a viral meme in the 2010s, 20 years after it aired, because the internet rediscovered it and decided it was the funniest thing ever created. The Simpsons memes are a shared language. When someone posts a Simpsons meme, they're participating in a cultural tradition that spans 4 decades. Yells at cloud. That's a paddlin'. The yells at cloud. That's a paddlin'. The goggles do nothing. I, for one, welcome our new insect overlords. These aren't just jokes, they're how the internet talks to itself. More than 800 guest stars have appeared on the show, which is a Guinness World Record. Michael Jackson recorded an episode under a pseudonym. Dustin Hoffman used a fake name. Elizabeth Taylor voiced Maggie's first word. Stephen Hawking appeared multiple times. Paul McCartney agreed to be on the show only if Lisa's vegetarianism was made permanent. and the writers honored that promise. 30 years later, Lisa is still a vegetarian. That's the power of a guest star who cared. The show generated over $13 billion in merchandise. Bart Simpson t-shirts outsold Mickey Mouse in 1990. The Simpsons movie made over $500 million worldwide in 2007. The Disney Plus 24/7 stream, launched in March 2025, was created because the show is one of the most streamed properties on the entire platform. 1 billion hours of Simpsons have been watched on Disney Plus. 1 billion hours. That's 114,000 years of people watching Homer eat donuts and Bart ride his skateboard and Lisa play saxophone. But you know what? None of that is why The Simpsons actually matters. The Simpsons matters because it told the truth about what it's like to be a family in America. Not a TV family, not a sitcom family where problems get solved in 22 minutes and everyone learns a lesson and hugs at the end. A real family, a family where the dad is kind of an idiot and the mom does all the work and the kids don't appreciate what they have and nobody communicates properly and everyone annoys everyone else, and yet somehow, impossibly, against all logic and evidence, they love each other anyway. That's not a small thing. In 1989, the dominant family sitcoms were The Cosby Show and Full House. Perfect families in perfect houses learning perfect lessons. The Simpsons looked at that and said, actually, that's not what families look like. Families look like Homer forgetting Marge's birthday. Families look like Bart getting detention for the 40th time. Families look like Lisa feeling invisible in her own home. Families look like Maggie being carried around by a mother who barely has time to breathe. And families also look like Homer driving all night to get Lisa a pony because he can't stand seeing her sad. Families look like Bart staying up late to comfort Lisa when she's crying. Families look like Marge standing in front of a bowling alley at midnight, waiting for Homer to come home, because that's what she does. That's what she's always done. The Simpsons told the truth about work. Homer's job at the power plant is soul-crushing, but he does it because his family needs the money. The show never glamorized that. It never pretended that work was fulfilling or meaningful for Homer. It just showed a man going to a job he hates because the mortgage is due and the kids need shoes. And that's what you do when you're a grown-up. The Simpsons told the truth about marriage. Homer and Marge's relationship isn't a love story in the traditional sense. It's a survival story. Two people who chose each other when they were young and then spent the next 35 years figuring out how to live with that choice. Some days it's good, some days it's terrible. Most days it's somewhere in between, but they always stay. And the show treats that staying not as romantic but as heroic, because staying is hard and leaving is easy, and the fact that they choose each other every single day, even when they drive each other crazy, is a form of love that doesn't get celebrated enough. The Simpsons told the truth about kids. Bart isn't a bad kid, he's a neglected kid. A kid with potential that nobody nurtures, with energy that nobody channels, with love that nobody notices. Because it doesn't look like what adults expect love to look like. Lisa isn't an arrogant kid, she's a lonely kid. A kid who's too smart for her environment and doesn't know how to make that feel like anything other than isolation. Maggie isn't a quiet kid, she's an observant kid. A kid who takes everything in and processes it in her own time, on her own terms, in her own way. And the future episodes take those truths and extend them across decades. What happens to the neglected kid when he grows up? He becomes a neglected adult. What happens to the lonely kid when she grows up? She becomes a lonely adult who achieves everything and connects with nobody. What happens to the guy who never changes? He stays the same for better and worse until his body gives out and they clone him. What happens to the woman who holds everything together? She holds everything together until one day she can't. But the futures also show that these patterns can be interrupted. That's the hopeful part. That's the part that matters. Bart can find success if someone believes in him. Lisa tells him he's a good artist and he becomes one. Homer disciplines him in Itchy and Scratchy, the movie, and he becomes Chief Justice. The specific outcome doesn't matter. What matters is that someone looked at Bart and said, "You're worth investing in." And that investment paid off. Lisa can find connection if she stops looking for the perfect person and accepts the imperfect one standing right in front of her. Milhouse isn't her intellectual equal. He never will be. But he loves her. He's always loved her. And in a life full of achievement and recognition and professional success, the thing Lisa actually needs is just someone who loves her without conditions. Not because she's smart, not because she's president, just because she's Lisa. Homer can break the cycle. He can unfreeze Grandpa. He can forgive his father for not being the father he needed. He can choose to be better than the pattern that was handed to him. And if Homer, the most stubborn man in Springfield, can do that, then maybe the rest of us can too. Marge can find herself. In the most recent future, she's dealing with changes she didn't choose, physical changes, emotional changes, the changes that come when your kids start to grow up, and the role you've defined yourself by starts to shift. And the episode suggests that Marge, for the first time in her life, might have to figure out who she is when she's not being someone's wife or someone's mother. That's scary, but it's also a beginning. And Maggie can speak. After 30 years of silence, Maggie can speak. She's got things to say, and she says them, and the world doesn't end, and the mystery isn't ruined, and the character isn't diminished. She just talks, like any normal kid. Reason we're still talking about Lisa's reason we're still talking about Lisa's wedding 30 years after it aired. The reason Holidays of Future Past makes grown adults tear up. The reason Barthood feels like a gut punch is because they do something the regular show can never do. They let time pass. They let consequences accumulate. They let love grow and resentment build and families fracture and heal and fracture again. They let the characters be human in a way that the frozen, ageless, status quo-bound present never allows. And in doing that, they hold up a mirror, not to Springfield, to us. Because we all know a Homer, we all know a Marge, we were all a Bart or a Lisa at some point, the kid who was overlooked or the kid who was too different. We all have a Springfield, a town or a neighborhood or a community that shaped us in ways we're still figuring out. And we're all heading toward a future that we can't predict, that will probably contradict everything we expected, that will be messier and harder and more surprising than anything we planned for. The Simpsons' future episodes say that's okay. They say that the future is going to be weird and contradictory and nothing like what you imagined. They say that the people you love are going to disappoint you, and you're going to disappoint them, and the world is going to keep changing while the things that really matter stay exactly the same. And they say that at the end of it all, whatever version of the future you end up in, the people who love you will still be there. Different, maybe, older, definitely, messier, certainly, but there. You know, there's a specific moment in Lisa's wedding that I've been thinking about all night, and I want to end on it because I think it encapsulates everything these future episodes are trying to say. At the end of the episode, after Lisa has called off her wedding and said goodbye to Hugh, she's sitting on the porch of the Simpson house. The fortune teller has just told her that she'll find true love eventually, but we don't know when or with whom. The future is open, Lisa is alone, and she looks up at the sky and there's this quiet beat, this moment of absolute stillness where you can see on her face that she knows she made the right choice. Not the easy choice, the right one. She chose her family. She chose Homer, who embarrasses her. She chose Bart, who torments her. She chose Marge, who doesn't always understand her. She chose Maggie, who can't even talk yet. She chose this weird, loud, imperfect collection of people who share her last name and her home and her life. She chose them over everything else the world had to offer, because at the end of the day, they're hers and she's theirs. That moment is from 1995. It was written by Greg Daniels. It was animated by hand. It aired when many of the people watching this video tonight hadn't even been born yet. And it still hits just as hard now as it did then because the truth it's telling hasn't changed. Family is messy, family is hard, family is the thing you choose, even when every rational part of your brain is telling you to walk away. The Simpsons understood that in 1995. They still understand it now, 30 years and 700 episodes later. And every future episode they've made in between is just another way of saying the same thing. I want to leave you with one other thought, and then we're done, I promise. The Simpsons premiered on December 17th, 1989. That's over 35 years ago. In that time, the Berlin Wall fell, the internet was invented, a man landed a rover on Mars, we survived a pandemic, we elected our first black president, we put supercomputers in everyone's pocket, and the entire landscape of entertainment was destroyed and rebuilt at least 3 times over. The world, The Simpsons was born into no longer exists. Everything has changed, except The Simpsons. Homer is still at the plant, Marge is still in the kitchen, Bart is still on the skateboard, Lisa is still playing her saxophone, Maggie is still sucking her pacifier. The couch gag still plays, the chalkboard gag still runs, the theme song still hits. 35 years of everything in the world changing. And this one family, this one weird yellow fictional family has stayed exactly the same. And maybe that's the most comforting thing of all. In a world where everything feels temporary, where shows get canceled after 1 season and apps die after 2 years, and careers change every 5. The Simpsons is permanent. It's always been there. It will always be there. And even after the last episode airs, whenever that is, the 800 plus episodes that already exist will live on Disney Plus, on DVD collections gathering dust on shelves, on pirated streams, on meme accounts, in the collective memory of everyone who ever watched them. The Simpsons is forever in the way that only the best art is forever. And the future episodes, those 10 beautiful, contradictory, emotionally devastating glimpses of what comes next, will live on too. Because they're not just about The Simpsons' future, they're about ours. They're about the universal experience of wondering what happens next, of hoping the people we love will be okay, of knowing that the future is uncertain but choosing to face it anyway. Bart will probably struggle. Lisa will probably achieve something amazing and feel alone doing it. Homer will probably stay exactly the same. Marge will probably keep holding everything together. Maggie will probably figure it out in her own time, in her own way. And they'll probably be okay. Not perfect, not problem-free, not living the lives they imagined, but okay, together, a family, the way they've always been. So that's it. That's the complete picture of what happens to every character in The Simpsons' future. 33 years of flash forwards, 10 episodes, 5 main characters, a town full of supporting players, and one central truth that never changes no matter which future you're looking at. Family stays, everything else comes and goes. Jobs come and go. Marriages strain and heal and strain again. Kids grow up and disappoint you, and then surprise you with a mural you never expected. Technology changes, the town changes, your body changes, your hair falls out and your back hurts. And one day you look in the mirror, and the person staring back at you looks nothing like the person you thought you'd become. But family stays. The Simpsons have been proving that for 35 years, and their future episodes prove it 10 different ways. If you've made it to the end of this, I genuinely appreciate you, whether you listened to every word or drifted off somewhere around hour 2 and are now waking up to the tail end of this. Thank you. This channel runs on people like you, and if you enjoyed this, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and if you're lying in bed right now, still half asleep, let me leave you with a few last thoughts. There's a reason people watch these sleep videos. It's not because the content is boring, it's because it's comforting. There's something about hearing someone talk about something they care about, something with depth and warmth and genuine affection, that makes the world feel a little less chaotic and a little more manageable. The details don't matter as much as the feeling. And the feeling of spending 3 hours with the Simpson family, even the fictional future versions of them, is the feeling of being surrounded by people who, despite everything, love each other. I started this video by saying that The Simpsons has been on the air since 1989 and that across all those years, the characters never age. And that's true. Bart is still 10, Lisa is still 8, Maggie is still a baby, they haven't changed. But we have. The person who first watched Lisa's wedding in 1995 is a different person than the one watching this video tonight. They've grown up, they've gotten older, they've experienced the things the future episodes talk about. Failed relationships, career disappointments, the slow realization that your parents are human beings who did their best and still got some things wrong. The even slower realization that you're doing the same thing with your own life. The Simpsons haven't changed, but the way we see them has. A 10-year-old watching Barthood sees a story about a kid who doesn't fit in. A 30-year-old watching the same episode sees a story about the consequences of being overlooked. A 50-year-old sees a story about the choices they made as a parent and whether those choices were enough. The episode doesn't change, we do. And the future episodes, more than any other Simpsons episodes, are designed to meet you wherever you are in your own life. That's their gift. That's why they endure. And that's why we're still talking about them 30 years after Lisa's wedding first aired, and probably 30 years from now, when someone else is making a video like this one, going through the same episodes, finding the same truths, feeling the same feelings. Because that's the thing about The Simpsons. They're always there, past, present, and future. They've been there since before you were born, or since before you can remember, or since that afternoon when you were flipping through channels and something yellow caught your eye and you thought, what is this? And then 20 minutes later, you were hooked, and 35 years later, you're listening to a 3-hour video about their fictional futures at 2 in the morning. That's the power of these characters. They get in, they stay in, and they never leave. Somewhere out there in one of Springfield's many possible futures, Bart Simpson just painted a mural for his sister. Lisa hasn't seen it yet, but she will. And when she does, she'll know exactly what it means, because some things don't need to be said out loud. Good night.